I pray for our leadership team up here. Also, our new county administrator, that Father God, that he will ask you for leadership, greater leadership skills, and you will use him for your glory and your honor. And so, Father God, we know that the only way that we're going to succeed in this United States of America is that we believe and trust in you. And so, Lord, I just ask that you forgive us all of our sins right now. Use us for your glory. In Jesus' name I pray. And every heart that loves the Lord will say, Amen. Amen.
Please join me in honoring the greatest country in the world, the United States of America.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Wilford.
That was very nice. Yeah. Oh.
All right, moving on. Commissioners, any deletions to the agenda or emergency items? I know we want to delete 10B3. Anything?
Mr. Chair, move approval.
I have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer, second by Commissioner Adams. Anybody wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. All right, next we're going to move on to proclamations and presentations.
Mr. Chair,
I'm sorry.
just a point of order. Before we begin the customary agenda with the proclamations, many people have met our new county administrator, and I think this audience may have not at this time, or the viewing audience, and I would request that you introduce our new county administrator.
You're ahead of me. I was going to do that after this, but we can do that now. I'm good with that. Absolutely. Will do. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to, before we get to proclamations and presentation, I was going to do it after we got done, but that's fine. I would like to introduce to you all the new county administrator for Indian River County. We're glad to have him. We're looking for big things from him, and I think he'll pull this team together and make Indian River County a more special place. But I present to you Mr. John Katanich Jr. and Mr. Administrator.
Well, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to serve Indian River County. My family and I are looking forward to relocating. Our house is currently under construction here, so we're excited. It's been a very warm welcome with staff, the directors. Yesterday, great indoctrination, full day of meetings, but had the opportunity to end it last night with the Gifford Youth Achievement Center at the Gifford Community Center, and that was really wonderful, and I look forward to meeting with each of you at some point in time and working with our staff on behalf of the community and the board. Thank you so much. It's an honor and it's a privilege.
Commissioners, anything you want to add for our county administrator? Mr. Fleischer, any words of wisdom?
I'm excited about your inspirational words. It's been a long process that we have a fine county administrator sitting in that seat. It was rather arduous, to say the least, but you know, I believe the cream rose to the top, and everyone that we spoke with independently outside of the county, where John has crossed the bow lines of performance, have been nothing but favorable, and it rejuvenated my excitement for having a new county commissioner. I hope we all feel that a new county administrator with a strong vision is what we need, and most certainly after speaking with him for several occasions, that we are going to have that. So I think we're not going to have post-election dissonance. I think that we've got the right guy in the right seat, and well, time will tell, because we have a lot of challenges up the road, and we have some unfinished business that has to be addressed, and he's got some great ideas. So we're looking forward very much for the input and direction and leadership, and I think that our county employees are going to have great leadership as well. So, welcome, and thank you.
Commissioner Laura.
I ditto what Commissioner Fletcher says, and I know that John and I have spoke a lot of times, and when we call him John, friends, that's what he requests. So it's not being incorrect, but great sense of humor and heck of a background. Can't wait to get started.
He's got to have a sense of humor with us.
Madam Vice Chairman.
Just welcome aboard.
You're on.
Okay, thank you. Yesterday, I'm sure was a very taxing day for you. You're back-to-back appointments all day long, but I so appreciate the fact that you took the time last evening to attend. It was Dr. Crystal Bujol's 86th birthday. She's the director, the founder of Gifford Youth Orchestra. So she said, well, everything's coinciding. It came together beautifully. Her birthday and Mr. Dukanich starting out. They had two cakes, one for Dr. Bujol and one for Mr. Dukanich, and John, excuse me. But I know it was a long day, but it was very, I was delighted to be a witness to it because it was a very warm interaction. It was a very warm welcome, and I could see that you really listened to every single person there, and the whole tone of it was beautiful. I'm sorry that not everyone could have been there, or that it wasn't on videotape, because it was quite a moment, and I thank you for that.
Counselor.
John, I'm just excited to work with you. I'm glad to have you up here on the dais with me. Really looking forward to all the things we're going to get to do together. I can tell you, as being the county attorney for 9.5, going on almost 10 years, it's been an absolute pleasure to get to serve this community and this board, and really excited for you to join on that journey and be a part of it.
Mr. Zito.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, welcome. We've hit the ground running. We ever had a great working relationship in just a few days in preparation for his first day. So great things to come. Looking forward to it, John.
All right. Well, nothing like throwing you in the first meeting, your second day is your first meeting of the board. So we'll see if we can tame it down and get through this efficiently without a whole lot of stuff. But again, sir, welcome. It's an honor to have you be a part of this team and lead this team forward, and we're looking forward to it. Thank you. All right, moving back on to proclamations. I'm going to start this off with a presentation of proclamation honoring Lieutenant Bruce Wyman on the occasion of his retirement from the Indian River County Department of Emergency Service. Emil, come on down. Right there. I'm going to go ahead and read this, then I'm going to talk. Hey, I'm going to go ahead and read this, then I'm going to talk about you.
All right, don't tell them everything.
But I got a lot to talk about. All right. This is a proclamation honoring Lieutenant Bruce Wyman upon the occasion of his retirement from the Indian River County Department of Emergency Services. Whereas Lieutenant Bruce Wyman began his career with Indian River County Fire Rescue on February 8, 1991, when he was hired by the Emergency Medical Services EMS Division as a paramedic. And whereas he was promoted to EMS Lieutenant in 1997, and with the consolidation of the fire and EMS departments in 2006, he was reclassified as a solo paramedic. And whereas, although not mandatory at the time, Bruce immediately began firefighter training and within a year was promoted to fire medic. And whereas he progressed to driver engineer in 2016 and earned the rank of lieutenant in 2021, in which capacity he served until his retirement on April 30th, 2023. And whereas throughout his 32-year career, Bruce's humor, compassion, and exemplary performance have all been well documented within a personnel file filled with a multitude of letters and commendations from both the public and private sectors of our community, as well as from his co-workers and command staff. And whereas most of today's fire rescue leadership has at one time or another worked below or beside Bruce and credited him with being an exceptional mentor with a calm demeanor that inspired confidence in the face of chaos and superior EMS skills that supported life in the face of death. And whereas Indian River County Fire Rescue is grateful to Bruce for being one of the early pioneers in setting the bar for selfless service during and after a time of great interdepartmental change, and most importantly, for embodying the true definition of brother within our fire family. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the board is grateful to Bruce Wyman for his 32 years of unwavering service, commitment, and dedication to his profession, his peers, and the citizens of Indian River County. Adopted this 18th day of April, 2023, and signed by your former captain.
Thank you, sir.
Well, now, let me talk a little bit. Well, everybody knows Bruce as Bruce, but his real name is Emil, and that pretty much stuck, and that's what everybody used to call him. On about the new guys if they call you Lieutenant Emil Wyman, but you know, I always called you that, and along with many others. I know those three right there did too. And when you mentioned the name Emil, they knew exactly who you were talking about. It's not like anybody had to search even if they didn't know, because the only other guy named Emil was his dad, right? So, but let me tell you what, Bruce is truly a fixture at the department. His performance was always exemplary. He was just the most awesome paramedic and still is. And when it came to a cardiac patient, if you could have any paramedic in the department, when you had a cardiac patient, Bruce was the guy you wanted. I honestly think there was times that he could tell, I saw him tell doctors in the ER that this is a particular rhythm, this is what's going on, and the doctor looked at him like, how did you know that? Bruce knew that because he took the time to study his profession and his craft, and was very exceptional at what he did when it came to doing his job in all areas. But his skills as a paramedic were exemplary. He taught and mentored a lot of young people in the department, and the same after he got his fire credentials and moved up through the ranks, he did the same. The resolution's very true. Bruce always had a very calm demeanor, didn't let the incident overrun him or overrule him. He was always calm and collected and got stuff done. And just a great guy to work with, always fun and always had a spin on things in the only way that Emil could give you a spin on, whether it was a world event or something happened in the department or a call, he would give you his opinion. He wasn't ever afraid of that, but it was always a unique perspective, to say the least, I think. But a lot of fun to work with, a good sense of humor, just a great guy, and he's going to be just fine, because on Bruce's days off, he's a contractor, and he does good work. So we're not going to advertise for his business, because I'm sure he's swamped like the rest of them out there. He doesn't need any more work, but he'll stay busy, so it's not like you won't see him around. But Bruce, on behalf of being one of your old captains and a guy you worked with for many years, I appreciate our time together, everything that you've done and everything that you have contributed to this county and to the fire rescue department, and everything you'll contribute in the future, I'm sure. So with that, commissioners, I'll open it up to you, to anything that y'all might have to say.
Well,
Commissioner
Captain.
Fleischer.
Captain, you work direct with this fine young man, and I had the opportunity to respond to a critical incident alongside this young man. I say young man because I can't believe he's retiring, okay? And I believe that whole league of individuals behind you can't believe that you're retiring. But I just only hope that when we say that we're losing institutional knowledge, as was just portrayed, I hope we're not losing the passion that you exhibited professionally in your response. You were a man of very few words at response because you were all business, and I admired that. But when the words had to count, you expressed them. And I would just want to say thank you for your commitment to the people of Indian River County, to your colleagues, and all of the fine service that you performed, and the tutelage, because again, you could look behind you, there's been a whole lot of mentoring that took place. And I want to thank you for that, because you've left a legacy. Congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Laura.
Bruce, thank you for 32 years of service to the members of this. Sorry about that. Bruce, I want to thank you personally for the 32 years of dedicated service to this county. It means a lot. You're going to enjoy your retirement, I'm certain. And don't work too hard on the side. That's not a good thing, trust me.
Madam Vice Chairman.
Thank you. Bruce, I wish you all the luck in your retirement, even though I know it's not an actual sailing off into the sunset beaches and margaritas type of retirement. It sounds like you're going to have your hands full. But you have done a great job, very well respected in the community. I've had the pleasure of working with you, not just in this role, but in your other role in other organizations in the community. And always have a great time, enjoy our conversations. As Commissioner Ehrman says, they are very hilarious and blunt and to the point, and I appreciate that greatly. So congratulations and good luck to you.
Commissioner Moss.
Congratulations, Lieutenant, and thank you for your many years of service to the county. No problem retiring. But I also I'll take this opportunity, since I certainly appreciate the importance of critical services, and I want to thank the whole department. Thank you for your years of service, but thank the whole department for the work you do every day, helping those that have a medical issue, or such as myself, who suffer an accident. It's kindness, compassion, knowledge, expertise, calm, in front of the storm. It's all appreciated. Thank you very, very much.
Mr. Administrator, would you like me to defer to Mr. Zito?
Bruce, well, I don't know you. I certainly want to thank you. 32 years of public service, and the fire professional is to be commended. Appreciate your service to the fire profession as well as the community. Thank you.
Mr. Zito?
Bruce, thank you. We've been on this journey together in different capacities, but you've been the professional the entire time and a mentor for your colleagues. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Chief Rattray.
Bruce, thank you for your service for the county, thank you for your leadership, and most importantly, thank you for your friendship. You'll be missed. Thank you.
Chief Director Johnson.
Yes, I've known Bruce since elementary school, so we've been around together a few days. I want to thank him for his dedication, integrity, and excellence he showed every day to everyone, whether it was on duty or off duty. He taught us all cardiac. So yes, we have big shoes to fill with Bruce when he leaves, but he was always willing to train others. So his legacy will live on through the actions of others. So we appreciate his tenure and give him all the best wishes on his retirement.
Chief Givens, anything?
Most definitely. Bruce, thank you again for your service, your friendship. We brought up the word mentor. You're one heck of one. You're one of the few. I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of good men and women over the years, and I've got a handful of mentors. He's one of them. I remember going to paramedic school, EMT school. I was always with Bruce.
Very trying times.
Very trying. Yeah, I remember those days. But I can tell you, he always took the time, even late at night, to sit there and make sure that I knew why I was doing what I was doing. And for that, it made me a better paramedic, better firefighter. It helped me be a better father. And I just really appreciate it, and I'm going to miss him a lot. But I'll see him, that's for sure.
Anybody else from the audience? Bruce, congratulations on a job well done. Anything you want to say?
County Administrator. I'd like to welcome you to Indian River.
Thank you.
It's a great place. People here are fantastic. Started out as a volunteer 35 years ago and just strive to become better. Always become, actually, when I started, I didn't know what a servant leader was, but I always strived to be a servant leader. I didn't know what the name was until a few years ago, and my wife told me what, it was a servant leader. And if you don't know what it is, people look it up. They can change your life. Really can. These guys here are awesome. Everybody in the back, thank you very much. I love all y'all. And I love my wife. And it's going to be a great chapter opening up. And once again, thank you.
Get the rest of the crew. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Morning, sir. Good, sir. How are you?
Enjoy that drop.
Enjoy it, though.
Guys look sharp this morning. Rich, good to see you.
Yeah.
We don't have to ride the Cadillac.
Come on that side.
Thank you.
Where's your bride at, bro? A little bit.
Look at this, they're bringing the big guns. All right.
Tell her to give Kathy your phone and she can take pictures.
Yep, sorry, ma'am, you have to come down.
And we will take the photograph, and it is on video. We don't know where to go.
All right, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks more again.
Good day. Thank you. Pleasure to meet you.
I got to tell you, time doesn't a lot, but I could tell a couple of stories, but that's okay. We'll save that. We'll save that for up in the chambers or something upstairs. All right, next, moving on to 5B. This will be delivered by Commissioner Fleischer. It's a presentation of proclamation designating April 23rd to the 29th, 2023 as Crime Victims' Right Week in Indian River County. And I think Mr. Zelno and Mrs. Brizzi are here to receive.
Right up front.
Come on up. Come on up. Commissioner Fleischer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it's very important that we designate Crime Victims Week in Indian River County because nationally, at any time and at a moment's notice, any one of us could be a victim. Any one of our loved ones could be a victim. And at the time of victimization, there's several elements that have to be addressed. We have to, in some cases, bring justice. But more importantly, the families are put in a turmoil. And we often talk about the village. We have to be the village. We have to support our victims and to ensure that they're carried through because it's a very lonely time, it's a very challenging time and disorienting time, and that's where it comes into play to be who we are in Indian River County, and that's supportive of our victims and supportive of our law enforcement to carry through the justice that the victims unfortunately deserve, but do deserve. I'll proceed with the proclamation designating the April 23rd through 29th, 2023 as Crime Victims' Rights Week in Indian River County. Whereas since 1981, National Crime Victims' Rights Week has challenged us to confront barriers of achieving justice for all victims while still reflecting on how far we have come. And whereas millions of people every year in the United States are victims of crime, including terrible acts of violence, loss or damage of personal property, and financial exploitation, and these citizens may lose a sense of trust, safety that can never be fully recovered. And whereas persistent barriers prevent many victims from obtaining the support and services they need and that the justice they deserve, with fewer than half of the violent crimes ever being reported. And whereas local community initiatives, especially those that build trust with law enforcement, are key to preventing violence. And whereas it is essential to improve access to services and safety for our historically marginalized and underserved communities, combat the surge of anti-Asian harassment and other hate crimes, and reduce gun violence and its impacts on the victims, the families, and the first responders. And whereas every crime victim deserves justice and assurance that their safety and welfare will be protected, and for being united for victims' rights and the services that we gain the strength as a community and offer the tangible support to the victims who seek to recover in the aftermath of crime. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that April 23rd through 29th, 2023 is designated as the Crime Victims' Rights Week in Indian River County, and that the board calls upon all citizens to participate in events that raise awareness for the victims' rights and to reach out to serve victims in need. Duly adopted this 18th day of April 2023, and it is signed by all 5 county commissioners. Mr. Zelno.
Thank you, Commissioner. 16 years ago, I took a volunteer position with the Indian River County Victims' Rights Coalition on a temporary basis, and I'm still doing it. And the thanks and the gratitude we get and receive is from those individuals who are court-ordered to attend our presentation about the dangers of drunk driving here in Indian River County. So last night I presented, myself and a number of our coalition members, Patty Brazizi is one of our leaders, and to a class of about 70 or more. It was the largest class I've presented to. And when they come into that particular venue, that community center, they have a little different of an attitude, we might say. And when they leave, very proud to say, I receive notes and letters to say that they're remorseful and don't ever do this thing again because of all the lives it's affected. So that's the payback that we get as a coalition. They're charged $40 per person, and those funds go into a charity fund that are used to help victims of crime and crisis situations. So very proud to represent the victims of crime in this county. I just want to give a shout out to Commissioner Lohr. He was very instrumental in prosecuting the person that was responsible for the death of a family member while he was the chief of, I believe it was the barracks, and then he was a sheriff. So I want to thank all of the law enforcement. We work with victim advocates, we work with law enforcement, and we work with the offenders, the people that are sentenced to come and hear me speak. So thank you very much. I'm proud to be here. I want to invite everybody here on the board to the celebration of the lives that were lost to crimes in this county, and that's going to take place on April 27th during Crime Victims' Rights Week at Riverside. Memorial Island is being under construction, I understand. So it'll be at the Pavilion at Riverside, April 27th. It's a Thursday at 6 o'clock. And our keynote speaker, proud to say, is going to be Mayor John Contonio. I think that's the way I pronounce his name. A lot of letters in his name. John Contonio, Mayor, is going to be speaking. So we're going to celebrate the lives. And believe me, the families that are there and they see our leaders there at that particular event, it's a real sign that we're a community that cares about the crime victims in this county. So thank you very much for this great proclamation, Commissioner Fletcher and the rest of the board. And this is Patty Brazzi. She's going to be taking over a lot of the leadership positions of the coalition. So we work with the State Department, State Attorney's Office, and the local Sheriff's Office. So thank you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Patty?
Thank you very much. Working with victims of crime in the coalition has been an honor and a pleasure. Working with such dedicated law enforcement, victim advocates, and just the community in general. So we're looking forward to helping the community as much as possible, the Victim Right Coalition, and I'm honored to be part of it. Thank you.
Paul, I want to thank you for all your efforts you've done. You know, sometimes victims make headlines in the newspapers, but they don't get the concern, the care, and the compassion, and the people looking out for their side of the story. And I appreciate all that your group has done in the past and will continue to do in the future. So, Commissioners, anything else?
We're good. Thank you, Paul.
All right, thank you.
We have the crime victims team. No.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Never see that one. Oh, this is too rich. This is rich. This is too rich. That's the first.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on with our third proclamation, 5C. I'm sorry. Oh, Joe, you want to say something? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Commissioners. Captain Joe Ballo, Indian River County Sheriff's Office. I just want to say a few things about the advocates and the victims in our county. So in the last 2 years, I was honored to inherit the unit, and I oversaw them for, like I said, the last few years. And the advocates that we have at the Sheriff's Office are tremendous in what they do. Not only with the victims, but also working with the other advocates alongside the non-for-profits and the, at the county level. So I can say that in law enforcement, and most of you know this, our main focus, we get hyper-focused on the criminals, you know, taking bad guys and bad girls away and putting them in jail to serve justice. And at times, you know, the victims are left there, and the victims are in need of service, need of guidance, direction, and sometimes education. And I can tell you what these advocates do is mind-blowing about trying to get people back on their feet and getting them back to be fully functional, to be an asset into our community, and to be able to survive and get back on their feet from their situation, whatever that is, from a level of a lost one to property to any kind of a crime. So thank you, Commissioners, for the proclamation, and I just want to express those words from the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you, Captain.
All right, next, moving on, 5C. This is a presentation of proclamation designating the month of April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. This will be presented by Commissioner Darrell Lohr. And here to accept should be Matt Markley, the Hibiscus Center CCEO, and members of the Exchange Club of Indian River County. So come on up.
Great.
You have the room.
Mr. Chair, it's my honor to read this proclamation today, and I know we have some folks that may want to chat, but please allow me to read this proclamation, and then we will commence. This proclamation designating the month of April 2023 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas child abuse and neglect are serious and growing problems affecting more than 3.2 million of our nation's children, and just locally here, 3,500 of our children. Whereas the abuse and neglect of children can cause severe, costly, and lifelong problems, including physical and mental health problems, school failure, and criminal behavior, which affects all of society. Increased public awareness of this devastating problem of child abuse and neglect is our strongest weapon in the fight to end it. Whereas many community organizations such as the local exchange clubs, Indian River, Treasure Coast, Vero Beach, Fellsmere, Sebastian, lots of exchange clubs, and the Hibiscus Center and other organizations which make children a top priority take action to support the physical, social, emotional, and educational development and competency of all of our children. Whereas during the month of April, Prevent Child Abuse Florida, in collaboration with the Governor's Office of Adoption and Child Protection and the Florida DCF and an Ounce of Prevention Fund of Florida, will implement Pinwheels for Prevention, a statewide campaign promoting awareness of healthy child development and positive parenting practices. The National Exchange Club will honor all children by wearing blue on Mondays during the month of April. Now therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the month of April 2023 be designated as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Indian River County, and all residents are urged to engage in activities whose purpose is to strengthen families and communities and provide optimal environment and for a healthy child development for all of our children in Indian River County. Adopted this 18th day of April 2023 and signed by all 5 county commissioners. Thank you, friends, for being here. Ladies first.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you, Commissioners, for allowing us to be a part of your meeting today to acknowledge Child Abuse Prevention Month. We appreciate your hospitality. I am Cheryl Overcash, the Director of Village Operations for Hibiscus Children's Center located in Vero Beach. Hibiscus Children's Center is a residential child welfare agency operating on the Treasure Coast in Okeechobee since 1985. All of us and our society want desperately to end child abuse and neglect, but while we are working on that, the kids need to be taken care of. That's where Hibiscus comes in. If a child is removed from his home and due to allegations of abuse and neglect, and representatives of the Department of Children and Families cannot persuade family members to take the children, that's where we come in and we take the children and we take care of them. Hibiscus is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We never close, and we are always there for the children that need us. The agency operates 2 residential campuses on the Treasure Coast, Hibiscus Village here in Vero. We accept 12 to 17-year-olds. And then we have an agency in Jensen Beach that takes the newborn up to 12 and other family kids to keep them together. Hibiscus, once the kids are on our campus, they're either several weeks, several months, and sometimes several years. I mentioned earlier, Hibiscus is a child welfare agency, but it's much more than that. Hibiscus is a community mental health provider. We have corps of talented master's level therapists on campus and out in the community. Last year, Hibiscus served more than 800 children and families on the Treasure Coast in Okeechobee County. Again, I would like to thank you all for having us here today.
Thank you very much. And I think most of us have visited the Hibiscus House, and thank you for what you do. I've been there a few times. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I'm Joe Walsh with the Exchange Club. Thank you for having us this morning and for the proclamation. The prevention of child abuse was adopted by the National Exchange Club in 1979. when Dr. Edward North Jr. was the president. He was a doctor, and he saw more children coming to his offices that had been abused. So that's how the Exchange Club got into really focusing on prevention of child abuse. All the clubs in the county raise money and donate it to nonprofits that focus on prevention of child abuse. We donate to programs such as the Gifford Youth Center. We donate to Youth Guidance, Hibiscus, the Boys and Girls Club, and to the Literacy Council. You mentioned all the clubs that we have, but we actually have 3 other clubs. We have 2 Excel clubs, which is at Youth Guidance and also the Sebastian High School, which brings in teenagers. And then we have a Junior Excel Club at the Sebastian Middle School, which brings in that middle school group. This year, we have a major county achievement of establishing a child abuse center for prevention in Indian River County at Youth Guidance. The CAP Center, as they are known, provide parenting matters program that is offered through the National Exchange. The counselors are actually trained by our National Exchange group. Across the nation, we have about 65 of these centers. The major goal of the work of the CAP centers is to break the cycle of abuse within the family. So the counselors actually go into the family and observe what's creating the abuse that occurs in the family, and they work on breaking that cycle. To raise awareness of child abuse in the county, you might have noticed we have the memory field that we put up. It was in Sebastian at the Riverwalk Park for the first 2 weeks of the month. We now have it over at St. Helens through the end of the month. And then we also place signs at the entry of the county recognizing this month is prevention of child abuse. Thank you again for your support. If you have anyone that approaches you and asks you how they can make our community better, direct them to us. That is our #1 goal, to make our community better. Thank you, and thank you again for the proclamation.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the work you do.
Commissioners, anything? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
There you go, sir, for your photo. Yep. Don't worry about that. The next one. Oh. We got extra stuff.
Yes, there's in front of Susan.
Big budget.
Oh, no, you're good. It's an ongoing joke. I'm the shortest one, and the tallest person always stands in front of me. It's okay. I'm always the shortest. I keep telling them I need a little stool back here so I can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
That was beautifully said, thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm always answering.
Thank you, everybody. All right, moving on to 5D. This will be a presentation of proclamation designating the week of April 23rd to the 29th, 2023 as National Library Week. And this will be presented by Commissioner Laura Moss and presented to Elizabeth Stenger from our library system.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it's Betsy Stenger, Director of Library Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a childhood bookworm, this is entirely appropriate, and thank you for asking me to read this proclamation. Before I do, I would just like to recognize staff, past and present, having to do with the library, our main library especially. This past year, I had the honor and pleasure of attending the commemoration of the Mary D. Schneider Multimedia Room, and she, of course, was a champion director, a leader with regard to the library and literacy, and I think it was, I'll thank Mr. Zito. He was present that day, and also Mr. Dan Russell, our IT director. If you haven't been in that room for something, you just please know that it's available for rental by nonprofits and different groups, and Mr. Russell did a fantastic job, and you're certainly welcome to talk more about that. But Mary D. Schneider was an amazing woman by all accounts, and so we have important people locally who've contributed to this effort. Proclamation designating the week of April 23rd to 29th, 2023 as National Library Week. Whereas libraries provide the opportunity for everyone to pursue their passions and engage in lifelong learning, allowing them to live their best life, and whereas libraries have long served as trusted institutions for all members of the community, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status, and whereas libraries strive to develop and maintain programs and collections that are as diverse as the populations they serve and ensure equity of access for all, and whereas libraries adapt to the ever-changing needs of their communities, continually expanding their collections, services, and partnerships, and whereas libraries play a critical role in the economic vitality of communities by providing internet and technology access, literacy skills, and support for job seekers, small businesses, and entrepreneurs. And whereas libraries are accessible and inclusive places that promote a sense of local connection, advancing understanding, civic engagement, and shared community goals. And whereas libraries are cornerstones of democracy, promoting the free exchange of information and ideas for all. And whereas libraries, librarians, and library workers are joining library supporters and advocates across the nation to celebrate National Library Week, now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that the week of April 23rd to 29th, 2023, be designated as National Library Week in Indian River County. And during this week, the Board encourages all residents to visit their library to explore the wealth of resources available. Adopted this 18th day of April, 2023, by the Board of County Commissioners, Indian River County, Florida, and signed by all 5 commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, good morning. I have a short presentation.
Oh, good.
This year's National Library Week theme is There's More to the Story. And at the Indian River County Library System, there's more to our story. As everyone knows, libraries are full of stories. We have books for all ages in various formats, including picture and audiobooks, fiction and nonfiction. We have newspapers and magazines. We carry local and national periodicals. But there's more to our story. We also have DVDs, music CDs, Launchpad learning tablets, and our North County Library just started a donation-based video game lending collection. And with Hoopla and Overdrive, the library never closes. Our patrons can access ebooks, audiobooks, magazines, comics, music, and video from anywhere and at any time. We have book club in a bag kits, and we just added birding backpacks for checkout. And for children, we have Storytime bags, STEM to Go, NASA Space Explorers kits, all for checkout. Our main and bracket libraries have STEM carts with tools, games, and activities for children to explore science, technology, engineering, and mathematics concepts. And our North County Library has a full makerspace with a long list of tools and equipment, all for the public to use. Our patrons can check out passes to the Vero Beach Museum of Art. Excuse me. And the Archive Center and Genealogy Department at the main library works to preserve local history collections while also providing access to extensive genealogy research, collections, and resources. Our libraries provide free internet and technology access to the public. We have computers, Wi-Fi, mobile printing, printers, copiers, scanners, charging stations, and 3D printers. And our librarians offer one-on-one tech help. These appointments are available weekly at each of our branches. And as Commissioner Moss mentioned, we have meeting rooms to accommodate groups of various sizes, small groups, large groups, all with audiovisual equipment, and private and group study rooms. Our online research databases provide access to current and historical newspaper and journal articles, resources for businesses, job seekers, and entrepreneurs, and resources to help our patrons make informed financial and consumer decisions. The Westlaw Legal Research Database is available to visitors of our law library, which is located within the main library. And we even have a language learning resource in Mango languages. For children, we have early learning stations with over 4,000 learning activities, and we offer access to abcmouse.com digital education program. Our Career Online High School program offers adults in our community the opportunity to earn an accredited high school diploma and career certificate all online. And we provide entertainment, education, and connection with our adult, teen, and children's library programs. Some examples are book clubs, movie nights, crafting classes, lectures, but so much more. In particular, our numerous children's programs encourage early literacy and a love of books and the library. And while we offer a safe and welcoming environment for families to gather, study, and play. Finally, we are proud to support fellow literacy organizations such as Literacy Services of Indian River County and Moonshot Moment, and of our outreach efforts to local schools and senior centers. For anyone interested in learning more about all the library system has to offer, we will be offering programs next week at Main, Brackett, and North County libraries at the dates and times listed on the slide. Our patrons can also show their library card at these participating businesses during National Library Week for a special discount. And for the entire month of April, we're running Food for Fines to benefit the Indian River County Human Services Food Pantry. So I want to thank you all for letting me promote the library this morning.
Well, thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. I think people forget how much the libraries have to offer. So thank you to you and the entire library staff for everything you do every day.
Yes, thank you so much.
Commissioners, any other comments?
Thank you. Thank you, staff.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Brought to you by General Services, your quality of life department.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, so much. Thank you.
Mr. Zito, you're right. They do a good job there. They do a lot of good things that people probably don't know about. Thank you again so much. All right, moving on to our last presentation, but certainly not least. This is a proclamation designating April 22nd, 2023 as Earth Day, and this will be presented by Vice Chairman Adams. And I think we have some local Indian River County celebrities here to accept, and it would be Miss Flack and Jill Brown and a few others. So,
Awesome. Come on down.
Madam Vice Chairman, it's all yours.
Thank you. It is my extreme pleasure to read this proclamation designating April 22nd, 2023 as Earth Day. Whereas the Indian River County Board of County Commissioners and the Solid Waste Disposal District are committed to preserving and protecting our community. And whereas we are all caretakers of this planet and we are committed to combating environmental degradation and preserving our Earth's viable resources. And whereas, founded by Senator Gaylord Nelson in 1970, Earth Day celebrates its 53rd year of promoting ecology and respect for life on the planet, as well as encouraging awareness of the growing problems of air, water, and soil pollution. And whereas Earth Day is celebrated with outdoor activities where individuals or groups perform acts of service to planet Earth to include planting trees, picking up roadside and shore trash, and conducting various service-oriented recycling activities to reverse environmental destruction. And whereas Earth Day broadens environmental education across all age levels in order to successfully achieve overall sustainability. And whereas Earth Day efforts uplift our communities, provide service to those in need, and build bridges of friendship among citizens, members of all faiths, civic leaders, and community organizations in Indian River County. And whereas the board encourages all residents of Indian River County to become better committed to the greater causes such as recycling education, water conservation, and food waste prevention and diversion. Now therefore, be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Indian River County, Florida, that April 22nd, 2023 be designated as Earth Day in Indian River County. Adopted this 18th day of April 2023 and signed by all 5 county commissioners. And Sue, thank you so much for bringing this, and thank you so much for all you do in the community, whether it's recycling or the Refridge, Elf Refree in Fellsmere, or just out educating the community on the resources and the programs that solid waste does. It goes a long way to making this community sustainable, and we appreciate your work, and this is kind of the culmination of that, which is fantastic. But
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So we talk about the history of Earth Day, and in 1970, Senator Nelson wanted to bring a greater awareness of all environmental issues that are impacting our planet, and our need as a society at large to bring awareness to create an even greater impact in order to make the world a better place for generations to come. Today, more than 184 countries, 5,000 environmental groups, and over 1 billion people get involved in Earth Day activities, making it the largest civic event in the world. Although April 22nd is a day to educate and make an impact on behalf of our planet Earth, every day is really Earth Day. It's important to continue to ask ourselves, what am I doing today and every day to make a difference? So we are very thankful and lucky here in Indian River County that we have so many wonderful groups that impact and make a real difference in our community. So today I just wanted to thank all of the members of Sunrise Rotary that came, and they do so much in our community to make it a better place. And Francis Purvey from the Sustainable Events Network of Florida and the Caribbean is here today. And also the Treasure Coast Community Fridge Incorporated is here today. Other groups that are not here that we want to make sure that we reach out and do a shout out to: Coastal Connections, ELC, Clean Water Coalition, CURB, and many, many others that work in collaboration to make this community more sustainable. So I want to thank you all again for the proclamation and for your continued dedication to Earth Day. Thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else? All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Morning, Sue. Great to see you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Hey, Deb. Joining us.
Thanks so much. First, nice to meet you.
Thank you. Hey, thank you for coming down today. All right.
Bob?
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for everything you do. Moving on to 5F. This will be a presentation by the Conservation Lands Division, celebration of Earth Week in Indian River County, and I see we have the dynamic duo here with us, along with some others.
One half of the dynamic duo. Can you hear me okay?
Wendy, welcome.
Oh, are we turned on here?
Hey, you're on.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners, and welcome to Mr. Takanich. I was brought up old-fashioned, sorry, until we've formally met. I'll have to call you Mr. Takanich. I come here today with a large group. We're excited to talk to you about some of our Earth Week events. Our conservation land staff is here, as well as some of our amazing volunteers. So we're kicking off this week's events with a talk by Dr. Monica Folk this morning. Monica is going to talk about our Scrub Jay program, which for some of you, I know you've been out on our conservation areas. Some of you may have not. I invite you to come out. I hear Mr. Takanich loves the outdoors, so looking forward to showing you some of our conservation areas. So after the talk today, tomorrow our event is at Captain Forrester. We are doing a little sprucing up of the pollinator garden out there, so hopefully we'll get some folks to come out and help with that. Thursday, we are kicking off our Outer Spatial Virtual Scavenger Hunt, which is a new event for our program. For some of you that are not familiar with our Outer Spatial app, this is a free app that the public can download, and it shows all of our trails in the conservation areas, as well as you can take pictures, interact with our staff. It's just a really neat app, and what we'll do is we'll have our participants be using clues and some of the information on the app to go through our conservation areas and hopefully identify some clues and see a really neat bit of nature in the environment. So Friday is, I think I'm dubbing our cutest day of the week, because we're having what we're calling our pre-K nature adventure down at the Intergenerational Center. We usually have a group of students that come down, pre-K, they come down and they do what we call tumble time. But this week they're going to go outside and explore nature and hopefully have a really good time. And then we're culminating our week on Saturday with a participation in the St. Johns River Water Management District cleanup effort. That'll be out in Fellsmere. So all of this information is available on our social media, and we encourage you to get in touch with our conservation land staff. And we're hoping to get a lot of participation. So before I bring up Dr. Folk, I have some long overdue recognition to make. Many of you know Beth Powell. She wears a lot of hats in this county, but her first hat was as the Conservation Lands Manager. So what Dr. Folk is going to talk to you about today really wouldn't be possible without the efforts of what Beth has done. I've been doing restoration work for over 35 years, and I've never seen a success story like the one that she has to brag about. So I was going to ask Beth if she would introduce our volunteers and maybe take a minute and talk about what her accomplishments are, and then we'll bring up Monica.
Thank you. A little unexpected. So if any of you have been out with me on a conservation area doing scrub jays, you'll know that I have an absolute love not only for the species, for the habitat. And I will proudly proclaim that xeric scrub habitat is my favorite. Although I love all of our Florida ecology and all of the different habitats, but I really fell in love with Florida scrub. When I came on in 2000 as a conservation lands manager, one of my first tasks was to manage a plan called the Florida Scrub Jay Habitat Conservation Plan, which was for the incidental take permits issued for the Sebastian Highlands area. And for me, that was a big learning curve, but I had a document that was prepared. It was approved by the Board of County Commissioners, and some remarkable scientists and ecologists behind that plan. And so for me, it was just a matter of executing the plan that I had in front of me. And so it's really all of the credit goes to the people who wrote that plan and to the Board of County Commissioners who approved it and who worked with staff all of those years to make sure that this federally listed species was protected in our community. And I'm very excited because I think what Monica is going to talk to you about today is the wild success that we've enjoyed because we implemented that plan. And thanks to Susan and all of our partners who focus their efforts for Earth Day and for the conservation efforts in our county. And thank you for supporting that. And thank you to all of the taxpayers who have supported all of our efforts throughout all the years. I mean, I cannot say that any program has not been supported as much as this one has. It's always been supported, and you have always graciously given me the opportunity to do what I needed to do in order to protect these environmentally significant lands and properties. So for that, I thank you and all of the volunteers that we have. So again, we grew birds, and we had lots of babies, which was very exciting over the years. We started, for instance, at Wabasso Scrub that many of you came to the grand opening. We had 2 families there, and we have up to 10 or 11 families now at Wabasso Scrub. So we grew babies, and because we grew babies, we needed more people to assist us in monitoring all of the scrub jays that were being born in conservation areas and then dispersing to other areas like St. Sebastian River State Park. So I see Patrick, and we have Bob here. And Lisa's here. So we do training every year. We recruit volunteers in. But let me tell you, this is hard work. You have to do these surveys in July and August. There is no shade because we cut down all the pine trees, which is part of our plan. But it's hard work, and the volunteers who dedicate their time to go out day after day after day to monitor the jays, but also to trap train them so that we can get bands put on them. And that's how our relationship with Monica started. All of that is valuable, and all of that information and the data shows us that this program has been very successful. So I'll turn it over to Monica. Oh, yeah. We have our staff, so Ashley and Michelle and Amanda and Joey. That's our new team, and thank you for your support and providing us with the staff that we need to manage all 2,600 acres of conservation area in our county.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to talk to you about scrub jays. As Beth said, my name is Monica Folk. I am a contract ecologist. I go all over the state and work on endangered species. Florida scrub jays are one of those species. But Beth is very humble about the success that you have seen in this county. And everywhere else I work, it is not a slam dunk, as she said, where you just have a plan, and if you implement it, you can be the successful. She is definitely above and beyond. And I'd like to tell you about the story and what I've seen. I've worked with Beth since 2011. As she said, she first called me in to help with just banning the jays. But over the last 12 years, we've actually worked to build this program because the jays just kept increasing more and more. And I'll tell you about how that came to be. So the Florida scrub jay is a federally threatened species, so you're required by law to protect it as itself as an individual, but also the habitat that it occurs in. And the habitat is very specific. As Beth mentioned, it's a very xeric community type, and it's extremely limited in the state. There's only 9 counties left where jays have any kind of foothold at all, and Indian River County, luckily, is one of those 9. There are a number of areas that we call metapopulations, which are large areas where the jay populations kind of connect together. And Indian River County is in one of only 4 metapopulations in the state that we consider to be sustainable or long-term viable. As Beth mentioned, in 2000, the county received an incidental take permit from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which is a very unusual situation where you were allowed to take or remove from the population scrub jays in exchange for habitat conservation arrangements that were promised in this science-based habitat conservation plan. I believe Indian River County was the very first entity or county entity to receive an incidental take permit based on an HCP. So that's a landmark event by itself. And it also means that you are going to be scrutinized very carefully about the success of that program. Basically, what that plan authorized is the creation of 5 conservation areas, which is the conservation lands we're here to talk about, in exchange for development of these blue areas on the map, which were individual lots in Sebastian Highlands, as Beth mentioned, which were potential scrub jay habitat or occupied by jays at that time. So there's a lot of requirements in that HCP habitat conservation plan that you are required to implement in order for that incidental take permit to remain valid and for your development to continue. I'm going to focus on just a few of those requirements and how we have built the scrub jay program around them. The very first requirement was the establishment of those 5 conservation areas which were identified in the HCP in 2000. So 23 years ago, those areas were already targeted. Those were almost immediately acquired and set up by the county very efficiently, so that was excellent. One of them is a city of Sebastian property, and that's the airport. Once those properties were set up, acquired and set up, they then had to be restored because, as Beth mentioned, they were very overgrown and most of them were not occupied by scrub jays. The scrub jays were out in the neighborhood that was needing to be developed. So extensive restoration had to happen. And again, Beth was very humble about her explanation of, well, there was just a plan, I just implemented it. That's not actually very common, that people are just able to off the cuff just implement some activities that are really intensive and hard to accomplish when it comes to ecology. So I'm going to use North Sebastian Conservation Area as an example. There were only 3 groups of jays on this very large, the largest of the conservation areas, and it was covered with trees, pine trees, primarily sand pine and slash pine, and that's not conducive for either the scrub community or scrub jays. So the first effort Beth had to do was remove all of those pines from those areas, and that in itself was a very intensive project, but it was very successful at releasing those scrub islands that you can now see on the landscape in 2007, which allowed birds to actually start reproducing and moving into the landscape. Whoops, did I do something wrong here? There we go. So as the population started to grow, Beth had been doing the monitoring which is required in the HCP herself with some volunteers. But as the birds grew on the landscape, she realized that without banded birds, uniquely identified birds, they would just all be flying around in the bush. She couldn't identify how many there were and how many groups there were, and that's a requirement in the permit. So that's when she contacted me in 2011, and we spent a year or 2 just putting bands on birds, and I'll show you in a minute what that means, but it uniquely color bands them so we can identify family groups and get more scientific data about this population as it grows. So as I said, we spent a couple of years, we put 62 banded birds out there so we could identify every family group on the landscape as they were growing. And by 2015, there were already 13 groups occupying that North Sebastian, but at that point, the scrub habitat was becoming overgrown, and it needed additional restoration activities. So Beth, again, being showing great initiative, which is very hard to accomplish in an urban landscape, contracted out very intensive habitat treatment work, which brought that scrub oak back down to the lower successional state that jays need. She even did prescribed burning in an urban setting, which today is unheard of. You can't put fire and smoke in the middle of houses, and Beth was somehow able to accomplish that over and over. So by 2021, we actually have 15 family groups and over 70 birds just on North Sebastian Conservation Area alone. The second example I'm going to go through really quick is Wabasso, which is at the south end of the 5 conservation areas. Similar situation, covered with pine trees. Those had to be removed. Birds started to move in, but there was still much more extensive habitat treatments that needed to happen. Again, Beth, very creative about bringing in as many ways that she could get that habitat addressed. Not an easy situation. And again, prescribed fire was applied when that is so unusual situation. And as Beth mentioned, we now have 11 groups with over 30 birds just on Wabasso. So the final aspect of the HCP is monitoring the jay population, the response of this endangered species to all this habitat work that's required to be implemented. We have a 3-prong approach to this monitoring activity. The first is in early spring, where we are looking out how many family groups and territories are there on the landscape for that year. And then we come back at the end of the summer and we look at how many chicks did those family groups produce, because productivity, as we call it, or reproduction, is a really great indicator of the quality of the habitat and if your population is growing or not. And then finally, because these birds are now banded, we can track dispersal or movement patterns. And all of these monitoring activities are implemented today primarily by volunteers. So I'm going to talk about the first one, which is the activity mapping, or the territories. But again, I'm going to emphasize the role of volunteers in this program. And the longest term volunteer for Indian River County, who was here before I ever even started and is active still to this day, is Jane Schnee. Many of you probably know her. She's active in Audubon. She's a very great conservationist. She's been working in the scrub for 15, 20 years, and she would be out there every day of her life if she could. And she also donated the Jane Schnee Scrub Preserve to the county, which is now a 6th conservation area that we can manage and is occupied by jays. We are also always recruiting new volunteers. So Lisa, who's with us today, was trained just this spring to be another jay volunteer. And so we're constantly adding that volunteer group and bringing citizens in to understand the conservation initiatives. So the volunteers go out and they find the jays in the early spring before I'm going to come for just a day or two and help get the territories mapped out. So they do extensive work, many weeks of observations, and it results in a map of the territories of all the family groups, because that's what's required in the permit. We have to know exactly how many territories and family groups are out there. So what we have learned, as Beth said, and is an amazing accomplishment. In those early years of the Habitat Conservation Plan, before the treatments could really improve the habitat, there were only about 10 family groups on all the conservation areas combined, and we have over 30 family groups on the landscape today, a 3-fold increase. That's phenomenal. And actually, the HCP is not done yet. It's a 30-year permit, so we have about 8 more years to go. And I think the population is still increasing. So that's amazing. And then the second step of the monitoring we do is the chick production. And again, a huge indicator for us. It's focused on these little adorable brown heads, we call them, because they don't develop their blue plumage until a year later in that same year. So we can clearly identify the chicks. So we come in after nesting season in about July, hottest time of the year, as Beth mentioned, and the volunteers spend weeks and weeks out in the scrub finding those young birds and training them. We call them conditioning them to go into a trap so I can come and put color bands on them. So this is what a color banded bird looks like. So they're unique colors, so every bird has its own combination, so we can identify every individual in the population, even though there's over 100 birds. So we trap train them, and then I can come and very quickly catch them up with the volunteers' help and get those color bands on there. And it's a very active and intensive 3-day blitz. And the volunteers are there every step of the way, and they've been there every day for the weeks before that, conditioning the birds. So it's really labor intensive, and we couldn't do it with an army of very happy, willing, sweating volunteers, and we have a great time. So again, a huge citizen scientist program for your county too, to have so many citizens so actively involved in true conservation work. What we've learned from monitoring the chick production of this population is very similar to that territory mapping thing. This population has exploded since Beth has implied all of those mechanical treatment restoration activities. Again, tried in many, many places, not ever this successful. So kudos to Beth's program. The last thing is just a very quick point about dispersals or movement patterns. What we've again learned from the volunteers monitoring those banded birds and where they end up, where they're seeing them, is that we are at capacity on the conservation lands in the county, and all of our extra birds, those young of the year that we're producing copiously because the habitat is so good, are going to the state park. So St. Sebastian River Preserve State Park has done really massive restoration activities since that was acquired as a state park, and their restoration is on a much bigger scale because they have so much more potential. We have very limited acreage on our conservation areas. They've got a huge state park, but they had no jays when they started, basically. So we have sent them over 50 Florida scrub jays since 2009 to restart their population now that their habitat has been restored. So that's phenomenal, and I do want to point out that there's a really important corridor through that airport, City of Sebastian acquisition that was part of the HCP, and that's where most of the birds are crossing the river to get to the state park. So a little more attention needs to be focused on that corridor to make sure it's maintained and the quality it needs to be for those birds to be able to make that migration across to the county. And last year we had a record dispersal of one of our young birds from El Paso, 30 miles to the south, through 2 huge urban areas, Vero Beach and Fort Pierce. That's, again, unheard of. And she ended up at a state park below Fort Pierce. but there had to have been scrub islands in those urban areas for her to hop between. And so it's really important, again, to remember hopscotching of little preserves or parks and maintenance of those preserves, whether there's jays there or not, is actually, again, important to the dispersal and those corridors that we need to maintain for endangered species to be able to go between their populations. So finally, I just want to thank the huge efforts of the volunteers who, as I said, spend so many hours in that hot, brutal landscape in order to allow all of the scientific information to be provided to the Fish and Wildlife Service as required in your permit. So thank you to the volunteers who are here and all the other volunteers who aren't, because they do incredible things for your county. Thank you.
And I just wanted to wrap up really quick and thank Monica for coming, because as you can see, we have some amazing data that really, I honestly wish we could publish because it's that unique. I really wanted to once again thank our volunteers and ask them to stand up really quick. We have Bob Howland. Bob and his wife Rebecca are retired biology teachers. Does it get any better for a volunteer? And then we have Patrick Pitts. Patrick served a long time at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Really has some amazing qualifications. And Lisa, I'm so sorry, I can't say your last name. Thank you. She is new to our group and very passionate and has worked out to be a wonderful asset. So we're super excited about our program. I know Commissioner Fletcher and Commissioner Adams have been out when we've been banding before. I invite you all to come. It is a really unique experience and just really proud of what we've been able to accomplish.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, bring him up. Don't stand in front of me because you're tall. Scrub JJ. You should have a mascot. Yes, you stand there. That'll be perfect. Thank you.
Joey,
Joey, doing all right, buddy?
got him on a free agent trade for you.
I know. It's okay. I'm used to it. I'm going to get a stool eventually.
Yeah?
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Legislature to have the scrub jay replace the mockingbird as the state bird of Florida. It hasn't made it quite through yet, but I know there's a couple legislatures that try it every year, and it's probably a good choice. And again, we appreciate everything that y'all do, and it's just fabulous. Commissioner Lohr, you probably never thought you'd learn so much about scrub jays, did you?
Sure didn't. Learn something every day.
That's for sure.
I know Blue Jays and
All right, well, thank you. All right, well, next on my agenda was to introduce the county administrator, but we've already done that, so, unless you want to do it all over again, sir. All right, again, thanks, everybody. All right, move on to item 6, approval of minutes. The minutes, 6A, the irregular minutes of February 21st, 2023.
Mr. Chair, move approval.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer, second by Commissioner Adams. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Information items from staff or commissioners not requiring board action. We had a Hurricane Ian proof loss summary and a notice of extension contract for construction of required roadway improvements for Old Dixie Highway roadway. All right, moving on to consent agenda. Commissioners, I would like to pull 8F, 8O, and 8P for information only. Anybody else?
I'd like to pull 8L.
Oh, okay.
No?
8L? Anybody
Yes,
else?
I was going to do 8L also, so.
Mr. Fleischer, anything?
No, it looks like you took half the consent agenda.
took a lot of it.
Just about.
That's good.
Okay, Commissioner Lohr, anything?
No, sir.
Okay, so again, it'd be 8F, 8O, 8P, and 8L. With that, I'll take a motion to approve the rest.
Chair, you want to check with anybody in the
Anybody
audience?
from the audience wish to pull anything from the consent.
Yeah, I'm Doug Demuth with Taxpayers Association of Indian River County, Vice President. I'd like to bring attention to, I believe it is 8R.
8R.
Okay.
And the document, the background document that was provided.
I gotta,
We'll have an opportunity once we get to that point.
yeah, I'll call
Oh,
you
I'm
back
sorry,
up.
which-
I'll call you back up on it. when
Okay,
we're-
great,
Just
thank
a
you.
request.
Okay. Anybody else from the public wish for anything to be pulled?
Mr. Chair, with that, I'd like to make motion to approve the amended consent agenda.
I have a
I'll
motion by Commissioner
second.
Fleischer to approve as amended. Who was the second?
I'll
Commissioner
second it.
Moss has the second. Anybody from public wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none. Commissioners, approval for the consent agenda is amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes 5-0. Okay, we're going to start out, we'll kind of do this in alphabetical order. We'll start out with 8F. And 8F is the update, and this may sound self-serving, but it's such a good project, and I'm so proud of it that we're going to do it. This is the Ermine Island update, and for those of you, it's not after me. It was named after my grandfather. So, Wendy.
Hi.
Old
good morning
Island.
again. Just a brief update on this item. We have been working diligently on our Lost Tree Island restoration project. We started last year by clearing exotics on about 10 acres on Duckhead Island and then subsequently replanting that. I wish I had known we were going to get this pulled. I would have brought some pictures. The restoration is coming along beautifully. The uplands really look quite special. Recently, last fall, we went ahead and mechanically cleared about 13 acres on Ermine Island, and Commissioner Ermine has a lovely photograph of himself with the area right after we mulched it. So the item before you is to go ahead and plant those 13 acres. So that would be almost 23 or 24 acres of restoration that we'd have underway on our Lost Tree Island project. This grant, this planting has actually been funded by a grant from the National Estuary Program. We got a $65,000 grant towards the planting. Everything on an island is more complicated. It just takes more effort to get equipment there, plants there, people there, all of that. So we're really proud of the effort that we've been able to undertake so far. We're working diligently on getting the project into the permitting phase. I was just having a very long conversation yesterday with Dr. Dwayne DeFries at the NEP, who specifically brought up Lost Tree and said that there's a huge amount of NOAA funding coming up that we're looking forward to hopefully capture some of that. So I welcome you to come out and look at it. It's a really neat project, and we're moving along as fast as we can.
Thank you, Commissioners. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, would you like this to be moved for approval?
I would.
All right, so moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Fleischer. Anybody in the audience wish to comment on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to 8L.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to pull this as an informational item as well. At a past commission meeting, we had much discussion about oversight of CSAC, annual reports, those types of things. So here it is, the 2021-2022 annual report. It contains a lot of information, particularly about the grants funded and awarded, number of children that are served. It also references for each organization that has received a CSAC grant, the goals and the measurable outcomes of those organizations and how those goals and measurable outcomes were met. So I think it's a very important piece of information. I think in this report is a lot of that transparency that everybody was asking for. So I know this is done every year, but I did want to bring attention to it based on past conversations and some of that discussion around CSAC. So with that, I'll be happy to move approval.
Second.
Mr. Chair, I had requested to pull this as well for a different reason, so it's informational, so if I may. Just to update you on the update, as we know, we passed an ordinance last May that requested certain changes within CSAC, and that's the Children's Services Advisory Committee, and we are making a lot of progress on that. The two groups, the main CSAC committee and the Grants Review Subcommittee, no longer overlap. As you may recall, we were separating the two of them. So a lot of new people. In fact, if you look at this annual report, the members, about half of the members on the Grant Review Subcommittee are new, and almost half of the members on the main committee are new. And I think that invigorates the entire process, and I'm thankful for all these people. In fact, we have something to vote on later today that will be another member at large for CSAC. But I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank staff. Mr. Reingold, Mr. Zito, and Ms. Powell have been attending the meetings that we're having. And of course, there have been a number of questions because there were changes with regard to the committees, committee and subcommittee. So the three of them have been there, and they've been very helpful in making a smooth transition and answering questions that have arisen. And I'll take this opportunity to thank the three of them. So, and if there's any further public comment, we can take it. Otherwise, appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Anybody else? Okay, I had a motion by Commissioner Adams. I think I had 2 seconds at the same time. Who was the
Public.
Who was? Give me a second. I think I had a second.
He was.
Who was the second? Commissioner Fleischer? Okay. All right. Comment on the motion, Mr. McPartlin.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, Mr. Takanich. I might wind up calling you Mr. T, but I plan on meeting with you shortly because I'm involved in a lot of things, and I wish you a lot of luck, and I caught you during the interview process. On the CSAC manual, you know, last time I was up here, I was a little disappointed in what you made, but I respect your decision. I truly do. And in the next couple of months, I'm going to give up one of my side gigs, and I plan on committing fully to this board to make this board stronger and show to you that this money saves children. I'm involved in the fetal infant mortality reviews for the 4 counties, and it's horrible that we are failing so badly. And that's going to take up a lot of my time. But if there's anything that you need to see done, any one of these groups that needs to be seen, call me and I will go there and evaluate them. And I appreciate you. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to comment on the motion?
Yes, again, Doug Demuth with the Taxpayers Association and also a board member of CSAC. I would call to attention the report that was just referenced. When you look at that and you look at what these organizations put out in terms of what they think they've accomplished, please ask yourself, based on what? Because in many of them there is no baseline. They simply say something like, well, we're going to accomplish whatever, and we did. So take a look at some of the baselines and ask yourself, is there a baseline here, and did they accomplish anything? I've seen, when I've gone through those reports, I've seen that multiple times. There's just no baseline, no point of reference. So be skeptical, ask questions, dive into it, give it a little bit more thought than just a glance over and say, oh, well, they accomplished something. So I would suggest you do that. Thank you very much. I do, oh, by the way, I do appreciate everybody's efforts and participation in the CSAC operation, the larger committee. You know, we do need to put a lot more time and effort into getting reorganized and figuring out what our focus is and our processes are going to be. Thank you.
Anybody else, any further comment on the motion? Seeing none, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. All right. Let's move on to 8-0, and that's the approval to submit letters of intent for National Estuary Program's Coastal Watershed Grant. Mr. Sparko, you or, there he is back there in the back. There's Eric.
Good morning, Eric Charis, Indian River County Natural Resources Manager. What you have before you is a request for support from the board for the county's coastal division to sign 2 letters of intent to apply for a National Estuaries Program grant. The grant funds are available. We have 2 projects that are in the hopper. We'd like to move them forward. The first step in the process in applying for the grant is an actual letter of intent. Can't give you an actual letter because it's all an online application, but when submitted, the National Estuaries Program does review the letters of intent and hopefully moves them on to the next process. So the next process would be a little bit more of an in-depth application in which we will be able to highlight our projects. Right now, we're looking at 2 projects, one of them being Foot Island, Lawrence Island, just off of Riverside Restaurant. We're looking to put a ring of oysters around that, as well as reestablish some of the vegetation on the island as well. In addition to that, we also have a secondary project in which we're looking to get a better understanding of the muck levels within Indian River County's portion of the lagoon. Much is known about Brevard counties, not as much known about Indian River. We'd like to change that and then be able to focus some additional efforts in the future on pockets of elevated muck in the lagoon, so we can target that instead of just a blanket program. We'd look to target some of the higher levels. That came as a direction from the Board of County Commissioners back in January of 2022, about a year ago, when we had representatives from FIT come through and do a presentation on muck. The Board of County Commissioners directed staff to work with the FIT staff, Dr. Fox, or Treffry at that point, and Dr. Fox now, on getting proposals. We've been working with him on that. We actually have a multi-phased proposal now that we'd like to move forward. And again, the grant funding application that we would like to apply for will assist the county staff in doing that. So,
Eric, have we looked into Florida Inland Navigation helping with this, or is that something that it might be worth asking them?
It is. I think we are outside of the window of opportunity for the fine grants at this point. We've been working with FIT and trying to get the proposal, so I couldn't do that until the first step, and unfortunately it does seem like a long process to get the proposal, but as an academic institution they have different timeframes, and we've been working with Dr. Fox on that. So I believe we did miss the fined proposal. I have been in contact with our fined representative, so he did make me aware of some of the grants. This one here does fall in line with our timeframe, though. Definitely open to other grants as well. So this is not it. It's just, unfortunately, in order to move this one forward, we're looking for approval to get the letters of intent signed.
Mr. Chair, do you need a motion for approval?
I'll take that as a motion. Second by Commissioner Lohr. Any further questions of staff? A motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Lohr. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Eric, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll move on to 8P. This is the supplemental agreement number 4 and the resolution authorizing chairman's signature for construction intersection improvements at State Road 60 and 43rd Avenue. Where's the applause? Oh, okay. Rich, I wanted to bring this out for you to speak about it in reference to this, is for information only, like I said, because it's been a long project, but it's always been a good project. It didn't always look the best because it was a construction site, but the traffic never stopped. Roads were open, and now we have landscape, we have trees, we have everything else. So I wanted you to update us on it and tell you that I thank you for your hard work and the long process that it went through.
Thank you, Commissioner. Rich Berger, Public Works Director. So what we have for the agenda item is basically, it's a time extension. It's nothing more than making sure that the contract continues on while we finish out the final paperwork to get reimbursement from the state. The state actually approached us with this and said it was a good idea to do it, whether we needed it or not. They thought it would be to a benefit to do that. So this is why the agreement has no monetary value. It's just a time extension for closeout purposes. As far as the project's concerned, the project has been around for quite some time. We know we went through hurricanes and we went through some other issues involved, but the flow of traffic has always moved through there. Now it's full 6 lanes, 3 lanes each way. The intersection functions very, very well. All the landscaping's in, fiber's been cut over. We've done a lot of improvements. It looks good. I know that some of the Property owners at the beginning didn't like it, but now I've had at least 2 conversations with property owners that say this thing looks great, and they appreciated it. They said that the wait was worth it. So I will share that with you. As far as the project finish, we're almost there. We're in punch list items right now. We've got to tear down the house that was utilized by the construction inspection team. That saved the county probably about $200,000 by using a house that we bought as part of the right-of-way acquisition. We've still got to take that down and do some stormwater pond modifications on 43rd. But other than that, the project looks good. It functions well. It's one of the better functioning intersections now than what we had before.
Commissioner, any questions of staff?
No, I'd be happy to move approval.
I have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Fleischer. Anybody wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Rich, thank you so much. All right, moving on. 8R, Mr. Muth, is the Children's Services Advisory Committee recommendation request for proposal grant application and agency grant contract for fiscal year 23-24. Mr. DeMuth?
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to bring your attention to the background document and under funding. It mentions on March 7th, 2023, the board approved children's services funding for fiscal 2024 in the amount of $2.773 million. I would like to make sure that we understand that the funding has been approved, but the spending has not yet until we end up, as I think we agreed at that point in time, until we bring on a new managing director and onboard that person, until we have a needs assessment completed, and until we have the opportunity to review and revise the reporting criteria for various organizations. So that's, if I'm simply suggesting we make some changes, or make that as changes or something along those lines in this funding line that is within the document, the background document. Thank you.
Questions of staff for Mr. DeMuth?
One point of clarification, Mr. Chairman. Michael Zito, Assistant County Administrator. What he says is generally true. You know, the funding is allocated for fiscal 23-4. That's in October. By then, we'll have onboarded the executive director, develop policies. All that's true, with the exception of the needs assessment, which isn't funded until that, the fiscal year begins, so it'll run concurrently with that process.
Commissioners, any further questions?
No, I'm happy to move approval.
Second by Commissioner Fleischer. Motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Fleischer. Anybody wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye. I'm sorry, Bob, you want to speak again? Okay, before we do that, go right ahead.
I'm sorry, Bob McPartland, City of Sebastian. Maybe my hearing's going, I got the tinnitus. I was headed to get a neck x-ray, but I saw this was on the agenda, so I had to come. One of the questions is, we had a literacy event, the Moonshot Moment, that was here, and several of the commissioners were here. And I got excited. I thought there was some extra money in the budget, because they're doing great things in this community. Even during COVID, the scores went down for the entire state of Florida, but Indian River County moved up because we have several individuals that are doing yeoman's work to improve reading in this county. The goal is to get every third grader on reading level at 90%, which is amazing. And then going back to what I said about the fetal infant mortality reviews, I'd encourage any of you to come to the meetings when they're on Friday and listen to some of the things that we're trying to change, these barriers that are involved, that people don't get proper medical care. And then, also going back, that was a very comprehensive Children's Services Advisory Committee, and it was showing where the money's going and what it's doing. I would just, as a taxpayer, I would like to see Indian River County do as much a comprehensive report on the beach sand reports that is spent. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions? Again, I have a motion by Commissioner Addis, second by Commissioner Fleischer. Anybody from the public wish to speak further on the motion? Seeing none, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, y'all ready for a break? Sure. Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break, be back here at, right at 11 o'clock. All right, we got everybody back. We'll call the meeting back to order. And our next order of business is the constitutional officers and government agencies. The Indian River County Clerk of the Circuit Court and Comptroller Jeffrey R. Smith noticed of the annual comprehensive financial report and popular annual finance report completion for fiscal year 2021-2022. And I see you have your dream team here with you, the ladies that do all the work for you and Ryan.
Yep.
So,
thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, from my staff and also from me personally, we welcome John to the team here at Indian River County. Look forward to a good relationship continuing with the county administrator and the administration of the county. First of all, the county's annual comprehensive financial report is finished, all 442 pages of it. I'm not going to go through it because I'll put you all to sleep. But the thing that I like to do most is the PAFR that I've given you all. And it's also complete. Both publications are sent to the Government Finance Officers Association for the continuing award. We've won it 39 times for the ACFR and 7 times for the PAFR. So we hope to continue that. We believe that everything is in order. For the financial statements, there was no comments from the auditors, no findings of anything that was not appropriate. So we have an unmodified, which is basically in layman's terms a clean opinion on our financial statements. The ACFR you can reach online on my website. You can go to my website, IndianRiverClerk.com, and go and see the full financial report if you would like to do so. The same with the PAFR, but there's a couple things in there that I'd like to bring to your attention. First of all, page 6, where it lists the major initiatives and the major accomplishments. You'll see that we have a lot of things on the table. The new clubhouse at Sandridge, that's going to be a major project, a good project. We had over 119,500 rounds played at Sandridge last year, which if you look back 10 years prior to that, it was 91,000. So the rounds per year have gone up substantially out there at Sandridge. I can tell you that those 2 courses are 2 of the best public courses in the country, and it's well run. So that clubhouse is really needed. You also see the Moorhen Marsh project that is ongoing to prevent nitrogen and phosphorus from getting into the lagoon. That's a good project. And also we have the Emergency Operations Center expansion going on and provide more space for emergency services. Some of the accomplishments, the north of 57th Street to 85th Street from 58th Avenue, the full depth reclamation project is finished. All the improvements at the courthouse have been finished. And you see the other ones there, the Building and Fire Prevention Department renovations, which Phil was glad to see happen. We really needed it downstairs, and that's been a good thing. So those are some of the things there. The next page, page 8, under the local economy, you'll see that the largest employer is Cleveland Clinic, Indian River Hospital. They account for 3.21% of the total employment in Indian River. The per capita income had risen through 2021. We don't have the numbers for 2022 yet. That publication is due out later this year, so we'll update this next year, but it rose from 84,000 to over 95,000 per capita income in Indian River County. The principal taxpayers, FP&L has continued to be the principal taxpayer. We have a good relationship with Florida Power and Light, and you'll see the rest of them there and how the dollar breaks down on a taxable value of $400,000 of a piece of property or residential, and how all that is divided. The next page that I would like to bring to your attention is page 12 and 13 under the governmental funds. The revenues, again, property taxes continues to lead the way as far as our revenue is concerned. It increased over 6 million this past fiscal year. And some fun facts, over the last 10 years, the general fund millage rate has only gone up a half a mil over the last 10 years, with the last 3 years remaining the same. So the MSTU has remained the same again over the last 3 years. It's only gone up 0.08 of a mil in the last 10 years. So we really do a good job of managing the taxpayers' money. The statutes allow an entity to go up to 10 mils, so we're way low. I think we're next to the last lowest in the state as far as our general fund millage is concerned. And expenditures, you'll see we changed the chart down at the bottom from a pie chart to a, what do they call that? Bar chart, thanks. And you'll see that revenues continue to increase, expenditures continue to increase as well, but not as much. We're still spending less than what we're bringing in. Mainly the increase in expenses this year was the expenses from the funding to get us through the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic funds. So, and also public safety as well increased. Those are the two main drivers for the increase in expenditures. The next page, page 14, the general fund, just like to mention there that our fund balance increased by 80 million this year, 77 of which is unaccounted for or unassigned, which means if we have a major disaster, you have $77 million to fix the infrastructure. If we have a major hurricane or a disaster of some kind, we have the funds available to get the county up and running again as soon as possible. And then the last page that I like to always bring up is page 17. The debt per capita has decreased down to $26 per head this year. I caution you that will rise next year because of the $50 million land acquisition bonds that were approved. We anticipate that being let before the end of the fiscal year this year. So the debt per capita, in my estimation, should rise probably to about $325 to $330 per person with the $50 million bond issue. But we continue. We had to implement a new GASB this year, leases, which now reclassifies leases as debt, and so that prevented us from going even lower, but that'll be a constant from here on out, because most of our leases qualify for the long-term debt treatment under GASB. Any questions?
As always.
Yes, Commissioner Moss.
Commissioner Moss?
Thank you. I appreciate the way you do on page 9, the breakdown of the property tax bill. I just had a quick question. Special districts, would that include hospital district?
No.
No. Okay, so the special districts are, if there aren't too many for you.
No, the special district would be like Sebastian taxing district, and the SWID is included in your, it has a separate charge for services, so that's not included in the property tax bill.
Okay. Thank you. Looks great.
Any other questions?
No, I'd like to thank my staff, beginning with my Chief Deputy Ryan Butler and my Chief Deputy of Finance, Alyssa Nagy, and the Senior Accountant or Assistant Finance Director is Rayanne Cohn, and the designer for all this, she's very innovative and is my HR Director, Laura MacGyver. So I'd like to thank my staff for this. And again, I also like to thank your staff, Michael, working with Michael, and look forward to working with John, and also Kristen Daniels of the Budget Office. We have a really good relationship in this county, and I'm glad to to be a part of it, and I just wish that to continue. That's not the way it is in most counties in the state. So again, I appreciate the help and the assistance from your staff.
Mark, thank you for the job well done on behalf of the board. I appreciate our sincere thanks to the job you do every day for us to keep us on the straight and narrow.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. That was 9A, 10A1. All right. The next item on the agenda is a request by the Treasure Coast Community Health, Inc. to rezone plus or minus 4.46 acres from CH Heavy Commercial District to CG General Commercial District to Medical District for property located on the south side of 9th Street Southwest, Oslo Road, across from 15th Avenue Southwest. Commissioners, this is a quasi-judicial proceeding. The parties in the proceedings are Indian River County, the Treasure Coast Community Health, Inc., who is the applicant. And I would ask commissioners to disclose any ex parte communications, site visits, or independent investigations. Mr. Fleischer. Commissioner Moore, any site visits, ex parte communications, or independent investigations?
None.
I'd have none also.
None that
Madam
I'm
Chair.
aware of.
None.
All right. Next, I will confirm that commissioners have an open mind and are able to base their decisions on evidence, prevented, and applicable law.
Can and will.
I do.
Can and will?
Can and will.
Can and will.
All right, thank you. I will now open the public hearing. And I ask the clerk to swear in all the witnesses collectively.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right, thank you. Mr. Sobchak.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. Andy Sobchak, Interim Community Development Director. And as the Chairman stated, this is a rezoning for Treasure Coast Community Health located on Oslo Road, and also an additional adjacent property where they're looking to expand. And with that, we have a presentation for you, but I would like to introduce our newly promoted Chief of Long Range Planning, Chris Balter.
Good morning, Commissioners. Chris Balter, Chief of Long Range Planning. Before you, we have the rezoning request from Treasure Coast Community Health to rezone from CH and CG to Med. The purpose of this request is to secure the zoning necessary to expand the current use of the medical facility that is allowed under the Med zoning district. It's also to establish a medical node in that commercial industrial district as well, at a density consistent with the allowed density of the comprehensive plan land use designation, which is CI. The CH zoning district. The CH district allows uses such as kennels and animal boarding, pet grooming, landscape services, general building, contractor, special trade, contractor, construction yards, small-scale banks, credit institutions, dry cleaning plants, credit reporting and collection, vehicle sales, repair services, health and fitness centers, convenience stores, and storage and warehousing. The CG zoning district allows for similar uses as well, with additional used vehicle sales, boat sales, rental businesses, and personal services. The medical district. The medical district is intended to provide a variety of uses which support a major medical facility and to protect such medical facility from encroachment by land uses which may have adverse effect on the operation and potential expansion of the facility. The CI future land use. The commercial industrial future land use designation is intended to provide areas for the development of industrial and commercial uses located in areas with suitable levels of service and infrastructure for urban scale development. It's located along major transportation routes and separated from residential areas. Zoning map before you shows the zoning of the adjacent area. We have RM6, which is the IG Center, the fire station, and to the east, northeast is an actual nursery. To the west, we have vacant land. To the south, we have the Grovewood subdivision, and to the east, we have vacant multifamily. I did want to note that in this zoning, the CH zoning is not supposed to be designated near residential, so this is one of the reasons why we're moving it towards medical. future land use map shows that it is in a commercial industrial node as well. The criteria that was analyzed, we analyzed concurrency, consistency with the comprehensive plan, consistency with the county land development regulations, any environmental impacts, and compatibility with the surrounding uses. So what it checked off for sufficient capacity, today I'm tongue-tied. Transportation, water, wastewater, solid waste, and stormwater management all had capacity. A detailed concurrency review will be done at the time of project development. So for the most intense use, it allows the same square footage for retail commercial. However, the actual uses that are allowed in the med zoning district are less intense uses, which are allowed in CG and CH. Consistency with the comprehensive plan. Future land use objective 1 promotes a compact and energy efficient land use pattern. Policy 1.17, it's within the urban service area and near urban center. Future land use policy 1.18, this request would encourage the development of commercial, industrial, and commercial industrial areas. And future land use policy 1.43, and there'll be more to follow on the next slide. So for future land use policy 1.43, it's specific criteria for rezoning, which we have in our comprehensive plan. It states that it must be within commercial and industrial nodes containing hospitals and major medical facilities. This is establishing a major medical facility in this node. Just some background on Treasure Coast Community Health has provided primary health care in Indian River County for over 28 years. It was originally founded in 1993 as the Fellsmere Community Health Coalition and is serving the small rural citrus and ranching population of the area. This non-for-profit organization was approved in 1995 as a non-for-profit. And another criteria is separated from industrial areas. Subject property is at least 700 feet from any industrial areas and it does not abut. Consistency with the county land development regulations. The rezoning request is consistent with all applicable sections of the county land development regulations, including section 902.12 and subsection 3, standard of review. Environmental impacts currently contains vacant land that is vegetated and existing medical building, associated parking lot, and a storage lot. The rezoning the property is anticipated to have no adverse impacts to the environment. A detailed analysis of the potential environmental impacts resulting from development will be conducted during the development review phase. So requested, the med use is compatible with the surrounding zonings. It's consistent with the comprehensive plan. It meets the concurrency test. It meets the criteria to be rezoned, and there's no additional environmental impacts, and staff supports this request. On March 9th, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-0 to recommend that the BCC approve this request to rezone from CH and CG to MED. And staff in the PCC recommends that the BCC approve the rezoning request from CH and CG to Medical District. That being said, I'd be happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Commissioners, or the applicant, do you have any questions of staff?
No.
Any questions? All right, do we have any presentation by the applicant? Any comments, questions? I see none. Anybody from the public wish to comment? All right.
I'm sorry,
Commissioners,
Bob McPartland, City of Sebastian.
Portland?
Treasure Coast Community Health, the impact that they have on this community, anything they're asking for, I fully support it. They provide behavioral health, dental. I have utilized them myself up in Fellsmere for the dental. The outside of the building doesn't look like much, but once you go inside, they use the latest technology. They have the greatest personnel. I've been down on the Oslo Road for behavioral health side of it. Fantastic doctors, psychiatrists, therapists. Vicky Soleil she has brought so much to this community, and whatever they want, please give it to them.
All right, anybody else from the public wish to comment? All right, Commissioners, do we have further questions? Final presentation, county staff, any further comments? No. Okay, anybody, the applicant, any further comments from the applicant? All right, seeing none. All right, we need to make sure that all documents and tangible evidence, if any, have been admitted into evidence or are in the hands of the clerk. Madam Clerk? Good. All right. Any county staff, any other additional materials must be also admitted into evidence. She has all that. All right, with that, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, your flavor.
Mr. Chairman, at the beginning of this conversation, I thought deep and hard to ensure that I had could answer those two questions correctly. But having served this community and been involved with this community for so many years, I am extremely familiar with the operation of Treasure Coast Health and am fully supportive. I had to think to make sure I didn't speak or just visit the site, but then I said, we all go to the IG Center. We all enjoy many of the area, so we're all familiar with the area. But we're also familiar with the community needs. And many years ago, I met a counselor, a doctor, both, by the name of Dr. Robert Rappel, who was spearheading this operation many years ago. And quite impressed as to what they've been accomplished from when they had a site out in Fellsmere to then one down in South County, and what the services they were able to provide. I think that this is a perfect fit for the community at large. I think that it's just the right spot. Accessibility, it's got a draw, it's got a community draw, and accessible to those in need once completed. So I would like to move approval.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer to approve, a second by Commissioner Moss. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion?
May I add one thing?
Go ahead.
In addition to the list of Treasure Coast Community Health's many accomplishments stated by Commissioner Fleischer and also by Councilman from Sebastian, McPartland, they were actually first boots on the ground during COVID when the pandemic came up. You might recall that, and that was New Year's Eve weekend. I mean, God bless, Vicki Soleil got her team out there and began to administer the vaccine to our community. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to thank them again for that and to acknowledge that kind of dedication. Because remember, at that time, nobody knew anything about it, but they were there. They were there to meet the needs of the community. So I'm happy that this has come before us. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any from the public wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none. Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, again, I'd like to echo Councilman McPartland's words. Kudos to Vicki Soleil and the team. They really have brought things to the table swiftly when we're attempting, they're doing.
They do provide a lot. They do a great job. All right, moving on to item B, public discussion items. Our first request to discuss is 10B1. It's a request to speak from Catherine Keller, reason the fence built on county-owned land. Ms. Keller. And again, I'll remind everybody that we don't normally act on these things unless the commissioner wants to take the item and move it forward. So, go ahead.
So I guess I'm just here to discuss what I had met with, I think, a number of you 2 weeks ago, April 3rd on Monday. I had individual meetings about an issue going on since May of 2020. My husband and I had built a privacy fence with the retaining wall, and it's 4 feet over on county property. When we found out about it, it was already built, it was already finished. The dirt was already there, sod and everything. For us to now go in and take it down, we are, you know, a little frustrated because that's our time and our money that we put into it, and then to take it back. So we've been trying to come up with a compromise of how we could still utilize the privacy fence and the retaining wall that we had put in, but something that also, you know, is a compromise with the county. So after my meetings with everybody, going over everything, Commissioner Lohr said that maybe we should all talk about some type of, you know, solution to the issue. I mean, I've been dealing with it for 2 years, and whatever we say today, I'm good with. It's been a lot of meetings, a lot of time off of work, a lot of emails, phone calls, back and forth. I know that after the meetings with everybody, they said that they were gonna reach out to Public Works to, is it Rich, I believe? And that you guys were gonna talk to him and see if there was anything that we could possibly do. Since April 3rd, has anybody come up with an idea for a solution?
So, here?
Commissioners, any suggestions?
There's 2 tracks here. It's to attempt to address, mitigate the actual actions that you've taken in the process. Then there's also the legal rail in which this can be addressed as well. 2 separate issues. Customarily, when you've had a hearing at, we could yield over to the attorney for this part, but when you have a hearing and it's been established, the avenue of appeal is not here. And the avenue of appeal is not back at code enforcement. Once a decision has been made and then made here, it goes to the circuit court. You have a window of opportunity to go to the circuit court and file. I believe it's 30 days, which has now passed. So that's not your option at this point. So then we look at what had happened, and you met with us individually, not collectively. And I had the opportunity to speak. I'll just speak on my exchange, and I gave you the opportunity to present your timeline and what had happened. But in looking at that, I said there has to be other mitigating factors here, circumstances that compelled you to do this. She said, no, I just didn't know. Well, a little review of the history of your property reveals otherwise. Okay. Reveals that there was other challenges about building, challenges about fence. It just wasn't done by accident, which was originally presented to us. Right. That didn't really know. I did explain that there is a process where you can look at sometimes maybe the survey could be off if they hit the wrong monument, you know, the old expression, you know, garbage in, garbage out. So if they hit a monument in error and then projected the property, not going into the surveyor world, that's a distinct profession and highly regarded, but sometimes surveys are off a few inches. That's acceptable. You know, you have to go by certain factors, and we'll allow them to explain, but there's really no way that it's that far off. And so when I personally discuss it with you, I explained that there is a process there, and that's really not open. It's not open to the fact that this was a complete accident, that you were unaware of anything, because there's correspondence with the county and some other problematic site development issues in the past. So then now when you're confronted with this and you go before the code board and then you go before us, it only forces us to have to go through the next step, or you, the next step would be to appeal this at the circuit court. Once again, as I said earlier, that option is no longer available because there's a 30-day window of application to file for that opportunity. So if you don't have that, I don't see anything happening here that, and I wanted to say it because I did discuss many of those aspects with you.
Was it 30 days from the initial hearing
Counselor?
before I met with you? What does 30 days?
So the 30 days under Florida statutes runs from when the order that is issued by a code enforcement board is rendered. So it's been signed, it's been filed with the clerk to that board. And at that point, that's when the time frame starts running.
Okay. There just has to be ripped down to be in compliance. Is that what we're saying?
What'd you say?
So pull the mic closer to you.
I said, so then it
Pull it-
just needs to,
pull it down like this.
the retaining wall and privacy fence just need to be come down.
Well, I think I would recommend you might want to talk to the code enforcement staff. They're going to know the order best as to what was rendered by the code enforcement board, and they'll be able to walk you through what the requirements were.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Next, 10B2, request to speak from Ryan Holmes in reference to mandatory polygraph test given to county employees accused of misconduct. Is Mr. Holmes here? Seeing that he's not here, we will move on. 10B3 was pulled. So now we're into item 12, departmental matters. We'll move down to 12F, Office of Management and Budget. 12F1, self-insurance funds and property and casualty insurance programs. And there comes our budget director. Ms. Daniels, welcome.
Good morning. Before you today is the May 1st Property and Casualty Insurance Renewal, which will be presented by Cynthia Stanton, the county's risk manager.
Good morning. So in preparation of the 2023 insurance renewal, the Risk Management Department worked with our broker, which is Arthur Gallagher Associates, in trying to get the best renewal quote possible for the county. There's a chart with our summary of lines of coverage, limits, and costs, and the overall premium increase was 27.91% this year for our insurance renewal. Just some market trends that are really driving the prices, of course, is the extremely volatile market resulting from Hurricane Ian and Nicole. Ian being ranked the third most costly hurricane to hit the United States, totaling $113 billion, which has caused many insurers to reduce their capacity, lines of coverage, and to some of them actually pull out of the state of Florida. The insurers that have remained in the state of Florida are what were called last resort. They're able to monopolize the system in a declining market, and they have reduced their capacity, their limits, while at the same time increasing premiums. So just a review of some of the highlights of this year's renewal. The property program, the renewal premium came in at $2,157,000, which is a total of 42.69% increase in premium for this year. What we've seen trends across the state of Florida, other counties, municipalities, school districts, is roughly about a 50% increase. Some of the changes in terms for our property program this year are our all perils coverage, which is our total limit of $165 million, was reduced to $100 million. The named storm coverage was reduced from $40 million to $25 million, which is about a 37.5% decrease in our coverage. Once again, we did some benchmarking. Arthur Gallagher did benchmarking with what some of the other counties are doing, and most of them have decreased a lot of them have actually self-insured, and most have absolutely decreased their coverages, limits, because of these rate increases. We hope this is not going to last long, but we just don't know, especially if we see another hurricane season like we did last year. The utility program, that premium increased by about 20%, and the limit stayed the same for all perils of 60 million, and the named storm did decrease from 30 million to 20 million. Our excess workers' comp program, our expiring program had a deductible of $850,000. We had two options: to remain with a deductible of $850,000, which was a 13.4% premium increase this year, or we could go with $1 million deductible per claim, and that would have resulted in a 6% premium decrease. Staff recommends staying with the $850,000 deductible as expiring. Funding for the entire program is through the Self-Insurance Fund 502. This is an internal service fund that is supported by charges to operational funds of the county. A budget amendment will need to be processed at a later date to fund the additional $256,119 needed in the current fiscal year. Since the insurance program renews mid-year and encompasses 2 fiscal years, an increase in the funding for upcoming fiscal year will be necessary to fund the overall 27.91% in premium increases. The self-insurance fund is supported by other departments, and the premium costs are distributed across those departments. Staff recommends the board approve the proposed renewal and authorize staff to bind coverage for May 21, 2023 through April 30th, 2024, with a current renewal premium of $4,042,976.11, which once again is a total increase from last year's premium of 27.91%. And it does include our broker's fees as well as of $175,000.
Thanks for the good news.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. You know,
Yeah, it's a really tough year, as you know, as you've heard.
It's everywhere.
It really is. It's not.
Kristen, is there determined, this is a really broad question, the impact that this is going to have for us on with everything else on the budget that you're
Well, yeah, I mean,
wheeling around up there right
as
now?
Cynthia stated, it's a 27.91% increase, so it will be borne by all of the user departments. I mean, we've got increases in our insurance rates. As y'all are probably aware, there's proposed increases, significant increases in the retirement bill that's out there, increases in, obviously, our contracts. We're still experiencing the supply shortages that we've seen in the construction materials and the lag time there. Interest rates are increasing. You know, we are up against quite a few increasing costs that unfortunately are out of our control. So it will be a tough year coming up. I wish I had a better answer, but unfortunately, you know, we've explored increasing the deductibles and lowering our coverage limits, and this is really the best we can do while still maintaining adequate coverage. And that's the most important part is, you know, we could continue to reduce these coverage limits, and we could obtain more through our self-insurance program, but I don't know that that's the best choice either. So we have decided that this 27.91% increase is in the best interest of the county.
Commissioners, any questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to say, Cynthia, thank you. You know, it's not what you did. You did a lot of work. It's how you delivered it. You've made the undigestible palatable. And again, yeah, it's a little bump, but it's a lot worse because everywhere across this great nation, everybody is specifically in Florida, are battling high prices. People are at risk of their homes with the high cost of insurance because they're required to have it for the mortgage. So people are forced to have to pay off their mortgage because they can't afford the insurance. And then it puts another dilemma. Again, I just want to say thank you. This was not an easy task. and I think he came out to a good solution code for us to make an easy approval.
Yep, Cynthia, thank you. Commissioners, any further questions?
No, but if there's no further questions, as much as it pains me to do it, I'll be happy to move approval.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Laura. All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Laura to approve staff's recommendation. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion? You're a busy man today, sir.
I don't know, this is an eye-opening meeting, and I was afraid there that Miss Daniels sent Miss Stanton up here with the message, which is so negative. And again, I don't know. I'm just shocked that I came here and just learned all of this. And I'm wondering if, part of are they making the county replace roofs like every 10 or 15 years now as a result of this? Like the rest of, residents who are getting homeowners insurance? Because this might need to be, I'm sure it is, but on a legislative priority later on down the road. And then the other thing is, I don't understand if, it's just the question is, maybe all the counties got together and collectively went in for insurance? I don't know if that's a possibility. If that is happening, that's the only questions. And again, I know this is a hard pill to swallow. Thank you.
Any comments?
You want a seat up there? A little closer.
All right, seeing none. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0 even on tax day.
Thank you.
Wow.
Don't mess
All right, moving to Public Works, 12G1, acquisition of right-of-way for Aviation Boulevard and US 1's improvements for Myron and Devine Madsen. Mr. Spurka.
Commissioners, Rich Berger, Public Works Director. So we have an opportunity here to purchase a piece of property to utilize it for the Aviation Boulevard extension that will eventually connect to 37th Street to take some of the onus off of 37th Street with a project that's coming down the line on our CIE. In this particular case, this property went on the market for $1.1 million. And we talked to the realtor and we talked to DOT. We did a lot of research on this because this is a willing seller. No attorney, no eminent domain. We don't have to go through all of that long process. They were a willing seller. We were looking at this property not only for the Aviation Boulevard extension, DOT was always also looking at it for a future widening of US 1. The overpass isn't an issue. This is just for increasing the capacity on US 1 and extending Aviation Boulevard. What this property allows us to do is this property allows us to put a right turn lane, which we wouldn't be able to do, which will significantly increase the capacity of this intersection. Think about when you drive up US 1 and people are slowing down to turn on 37th Street. A right turn lane on where this property is now is huge. And I wish Phil was here because Phil would stand up and say the same thing. I miss my buddy Phil with these things because transportation was one of his passions. And him and I together were really trying to make these things work. With that, what we have is an opportunity to purchase this property. The appraisal value was $1 million. So we're right in the ballpark with the asking price of $1.1 million. Our realtor, CREC, approached the property owner, and we have an agreement to deposit $25,000 as an escrow down payment. That money has already been processed by CREC. As we move forward, as we complete if the board approves this, we move forward with inspection of the building. We'll be required to deposit another $50,000 in escrow, which will come off of the $1.1 million at the end of the day, so that we can complete our inspection of the buildings, just to make sure that we're good, we're not inheriting some kind of flaw for this project. With that, staff recommends the board approve the agreement to purchase and sell real estate for the Matson property and approve the assignment and agreement to purchase the Matson and authorize the chairman to execute the document on behalf of the board. Staff also requests the board authorize the Office of Budget and Management to request a written check if needed, in the amounts of $25,000 and $50,000 for escrow payments. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Well, I think this is a fabulous idea. Apparently, Mr. Brawls over there, he say this absolutely meets the O'Brien rule, I think, and everything else. But with that regards to that, I think the more important thing is it gives us the opportunity to hopefully move forward and move a little bit, maybe quicker. I don't know, you can answer that with regards to the aviation extension, to give us a second route in and out of the hospital and medical district and take some of the pressure off 37th. I know that y'all have been talking with the landowners where the extension would go through, and I think there's still some work to do, but overall, what I've heard, it's going fairly well. And I think that the quicker we can move on that and get that aviation extension through there to the hospital area is going to be a huge plus for the county and a huge plus for that area of traffic throughout the aviation US 1, 33rd, 37th Street area. I think it'll be huge, and yeah, I think this is a great idea. Commissioners, any further comments?
However it works, Mr. Chair, however it works with whatever option is taken, this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I
So,
agree.
with that, motion to approve.
Second.
Anybody else? I have a motion from Commissioner Fleischer, seconded by Commissioner Adams. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Good job, Rich. All right, 12G2, request funding for authorization to purchase a motor grader. I always
Mr.
thought they were
Chair.
called road graders. What the heck's a motor grader?
Road grader.
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to move approval. I just have one question. How many more roads do we get to grade with this?
Well, the answer,
Or how much faster can we grade the ones we already have?
first, the answer to that question, are you gonna operate it, or,
If I'm allowed, that would be awesome.
okay. Well, in that case,
Kristen is going to have a heart attack, though, if we agree to that. Oh, Cynthia, thank God we have that extra insurance.
That'd be a good idea.
we're gonna put her, we'll take you to the fairgrounds.
I can be your backup for
Mr.
emergency purposes.
Did you get a second?
So the,
Second.
I'd like to second that.
Well, because we can't discuss it until we get one. So now we can.
So the answer to your question is we're anticipating when we have with this grader and we keep in the ones we have, we're gonna be able to cut down our grading time and some of on our routes. We're gonna rearrange our routes to help that. VLE, we've cut down from, used to be 14 to 17 days with with 2 graders out there now. We've actually cut it down to almost 11 days. We still have some areas in Oslo Park, Pine Tree Park, actually in Paradise Park, that we're still up 14, 16 days, and those are the routes we're going to be looking at to reduce our grading time. My goal is to get grading all of our dirt roads within 10 days. That's my goal. That's the best we can do unless we go buy another 10 graders. Even with the rains, my staff we're out there. People, they say, oh, they're just driving around. No, we're getting the water off the road so we can dry them off as quick as possible so we can get back to grading. I've got great staff out there grading the roadways. They're cognizant of what needs to be done, and they take pride in what they're doing. And I'll be quite honest with you, several people will talk to my grader operators and tell them they're doing a good job, especially in VLE right now with the drainage we've been doing, Pine Tree Park with the drainage and where we grade. Residents come out and talk to the road and bridge people and thank them for what they're doing. So, we've got a great team moving forward, and I think that this is going to help us reduce our grading times, which is going to increase the residents' appreciation of what we do day in and day out.
Thank you.
Well, I know that,
Caterpillar versus John Deere on there. The John Deere was cheaper. Do y'all have, is Fleet's Caterpillars already?
Well, we have 7 Cats and 2 John Deeres. We're working with John Deere. This one had finger controls, and we use joysticks. My operators use joystick controls. We're talking to Cat right now. There is a possibility that the Cat grader is available with joystick controls. They're looking into it. That was one of the things that I was going to bring up to the board. If I can get the John Deere, which is a little bit cheaper, we would do that. But it's a control thing. I don't like buying something from the factory and immediately swapping out the fingertip controls from the joysticks, that causes me concern. So we're looking into it and we're working with John Deere on it. But either way, we'll get a grader here shortly to increase our productivity.
Madam Vice Chairman, which one would you like?
One that runs on the road.
Well,
I don't particularly, I mean, I'm John Deere girl, but I don't care.
Joystick, finger
Oh,
control,
yeah.
what would you prefer?
Let's not go there.
Just remember,
Rich's
they don't-
head's
they
gonna
don't
explode.
float.
Her input is important. She's just made dibs to be able to be a motor grader operator. Now, Rich, while we're here though, if you go in the route of getting a Zamboni, I want that div. Okay? I don't think we're gonna get one. Yeah, but I could do the job.
Okay,
All right?
we'll keep you in mind.
Thank you.
All right, any further questions of staff?
Goodness, no.
I have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Fleischer. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to the county attorney matters, 13A, use of optional sales tax for beach renourishment projects.
Thank you very
Counselor.
Thank you very much. In November of 2016, the electors of Indian River County voted to extend the 1 cent optional sales tax, which helps fund lots of different county infrastructure projects. Per Florida statutes, the 1 cent optional sales tax can be used for any fixed capital expenditure or fixed capital outlay associated with the construction, reconstruction, or improvement of public facilities that have a life expectancy of 5 or more years, any related land acquisition, land improvement, design, and engineering costs, and all other professional and related costs required to bring the public facilities into service. So I met with Ryan Butler from the clerk's office, Ryan's in the audience today. And as you know, our clerk's office serves as our finance department, so I always like to make sure that anything that we're thinking about spending money on, the clerk's office is in agreement on. And so we were comfortable with the ability to use proceeds from optional sales tax for beach and dune projects so long as they had a life expectancy of 5 or more years. And county staff had confirmed that the projects are designed to meet this temporal requirement. It is important to note that optional sales tax funds have previously been used for the beaches, and here we're just simply looking for authorization that the board would be comfortable with us moving forward and using those now, not just with the beaches, but with the dunes. And that was sort of a legal issue that Ryan and I were sorting through and we felt comfortable with. So simply just the county attorney's office today recommends that the board approve the attached resolution that would allow county staff to utilize optional sales tax for beach and shore projects. Please understand that the idea was simply is if we had a project in the future or a project that we were looking at for the beaches and we were trying to figure out money moving forward, if we knew today that the board was comfortable with us using optional sales tax, then as we present a future item to the board, we would know that would be part of the funding mix. Obviously, if the board today chose not to be able to use optional sales tax, then we would simply use, as we've been doing, the tourist development dollars that we've used in the past for those. So anywho, just welcoming comments from the board and input from the board on this. And thank you very much.
Counselor, between you and maybe Kristen on this too. I don't really have a problem with this. I don't necessarily want it to be our first choice of funding. I mean, is that?
And it's not. What I can tell you is these last couple budget years have been hard in that we've been hit with Sector 3 and Sector 7, which were very expensive, and we have not been paid back from FEMA yet. So right now, sectors, I'm sorry, I think I said 7, sectors 3 and 5 total, we're almost $30 million from our beach fund. Right now, we're still owed about $16.2 million from FEMA and our FDEP grants, and the beach fund has a negative $5.5 million balance. So we will continue, just as we did last year, to borrow from the optional sales tax fund to float the beach fund. But I think what we're trying to say here is just long-term sustainability is a question. These beach renourishment projects are happening more often and they're more expensive. And we will likely get to a point at some point when even after we are paid back and we have our $10 million in the bank, if we have to do another Sector 3 for 20-something million, we could run into an issue where there is not substantial funding left in the beach fund to cover those costs. And we just want to memorialize the option of having optional sales tax as a backup if we need it. It is not our default, but we will have to run in the negative for a while in the beach fund because unfortunately FEMA and the DEP don't reimburse the county very quickly. So.
Commissioner Moss.
You know, I'm not comfortable with this for a whole host of reasons, but one of the first being, if we're in dire straits, then what I'd prefer to do is re-examine, the tourist tax issue, because when that first passed back in 1987, that was entirely dedicated to beach renourishment, beach restoration. I have a copy of the bill when it did pass. And of course, this was back in the 1980s, but at that time, $500,000 was the budget. And other than $30,000 that went to the Chamber of Commerce, everything else went towards beach restoration. So that's what the electorate, that's what our constituents approved. They approved that expenditure of money. I mean, that division, that proportion, in that proportion. Of course, today, it's dramatically different, but before I would say yes to this, I'd rather go back and revisit that, because if we start using, one of the reasons is if we start using optional sales tax for it, we're taking away from something else. It's just like, we just spoke earlier about CSAC, and then we spoke about this huge increase in insurance. So, it's always a balancing act, where is the money going to go? So with the eating into the optional sales tax, who comes up short then? I mean, where is that optional sales tax? What are we currently funding? I mean, all the different, and I don't expect you to tell me now. But the point is something else will come up short. It's always a balancing act. And what I found is if we say we might do it, it happens. So for me, I don't even want to consider it. I'd rather go back, revisit the entire thing. Oh, and another concern I had is that this optional sales tax, it comes to us, but the cities also purchase. So how would they be? We have to take into consideration our cities, Sebastian, Vero Beach. How would they be affected by this? I think it's a more far-ranging issue. I mean, I understand we can do it, but because we can do it doesn't mean we should do it. And I'm not comfortable. I think
we mentioned it. It's not our first choice option. We did use optional sales tax in 2010, where there just was not enough money to do the project. I mean, we had to, because the board had voted they wanted the project to move forward. So
and thank you. I understand that, but this would codify it. Then it becomes set. If we're in dire straits and we need to pull some extra money, that's one thing, as opposed to passing something that becomes a set legal format for that kind of use of funds. Anyway, thank you. I'm not in favor.
Madam Vice Chairman?
Just, Kristen, when sales tax is remitted, the cities get their own sales tax, correct? It's remitted directly to them, so our optional sales tax does not include the city's optional sales tax. Is that correct?
Ours is what we've.
It's collected within the county, and what is collected within the city limits is remitted by the state to the cities directly. So just for that clarification, there's no overlap. We're not spending the city's money. I don't mind having this as an option, but I would prefer a case-by-case basis, because quite frankly, we already have 20% of the optional sales tax dedicated directly to lagoon projects, which brings us down to 80% of what we collect that we can expend on infrastructure projects. We're going to have a lot of utilities work and long-range projects that are going to cost a lot of money, that are going to be necessary in the next couple years in that department. I would love to pave some more roads. not to rehash the last item, but, you know, we can use this money for that as well. I'm not against using it when we need to plug those holes like we have in the past, but instead of kind of having a written policy for that, I would prefer it kind of be brought to us on a case-by-case basis as needed. I do worry about just kind of whittling away at that optional sales tax because it is kind of our go-to fund when we need additional funding for certain infrastructure projects that might not be included in the traditional funding streams. So kind of tying it up in that way, I'm not sure if, you know, plus I would question whether the beach renourishment projects are actually 5 years. I know they're engineered that way, but it hasn't worked out that way recently. But that is an act of God scenario, not an engineering scenario.
And just some insight of why we needed to explore this option. You know, the board hasn't had a chance to vote on it yet. That'll be forthcoming from Public Works, but I'm not sure that we have enough money in the beach fund once the bids come back to handle the sand loss from sectors 3, 5, and the dune and 4. So that's what we're up against.
Yeah, I completely understand that. And as we go through, as time moves on, these projects get more and more expensive. Trying to find the sand itself gets more and more expensive. And then trying to mobilize and just have the equipment to do it gets more and more expensive. So I completely understand that. I don't mind it being included in a funding package presented to us with other options, but I kind of, I don't like the idea of kind of, and I know this is a backup option, but even with the lagoon projects, which I know everybody agreed on was very important, and I don't disagree with that at all, tying up that for something specific without kind of, looking at the overall umbrella infrastructure projects that we need to do across the board. I mean, I think sales tax is always an option for something like this, whether we have a policy that says it is or not, because by its nature, it's an infrastructure project.
So I just want to dive into the concept of the resolution that was presented, and certainly hear loud and clear from the board. And it was one of our concepts of going forward is we would, budget would present, or Public Works or the county attorney's office would present an item that said, hey, we're planning to do this beach, you know, and dune project. We can fund it all through through tourist development dollars. Or maybe there'd be one where we'd say, hey, we need a little bit from optional sales tax. What we're trying to do is kind of memorialize the legal issue that the clerk's office and the county attorney's office bumped up against, which was, do we legally feel that the dune component of a beach and dune project met the statutory requirements? Through our research, we felt that it did, but we thought instead of sort of rehashing that legal argument over and over again every time, if we solve this, at least the policy decision would still be left for future boards to dive into.
So let me ask this question then. Why would a dune project not be considered qualifying if a beach project is?
So one of the issues that came up in the analysis was a question of ownership. So one of the issue was it had to be a public facility. And through that, we kind of came into this issue, in addition to the timing issue of 5 to 7, was, well, if the dune is on private property, is it public facility? And so we analyzed the issue, and we felt, based upon the research that we did and the looking at the statute, was even if the beach, the dune was on a private property, we've always seen those beaches and dunes as public infrastructure in Indian River County. In addition to that, we would get easements so that we would have some sort of right to be able to utilize those dunes. And thus, between the easements, between us having viewed these beaches as public infrastructure, we were just trying to memorialize resolving that. Then the final legal issue really was the 5 to 7 years issue. And that's where we were looking for staff input, and county staff had said, yeah, we designed these to make sure that they're 5+ years for life expectancy. That's really the legal basis for why we came up with the resolution. I just kind of want to give a little bit more background.
So for clarification purposes, you're really asking us to deem the dunes as public infrastructure moving forward so you can utilize sales tax if needed. You're not really asking us to add sales tax as a specific funding source for these.
That is.
Okay, so I misunderstood the whole concept.
Yeah. The concept was simply if you bless this.
Then I don't have any problem with it.
Yeah.
That's what,
It's all legalese gets like all,
it
makes it.
gives the county administrator Public Works an opportunity to move forward with another funding mechanism authorized by us. Again, 2010, we had a dip into optional sales tax. Again, the point made about the tourist tax, there was probably a time when the horse and wagons were coming through town that that funding could be totally packaged by the tourist tax. It used to cost a whole lot less to do sand. I don't think there's anybody up here recalls when we were authorizing tens of millions of dollars in beach restoration. Optional sales tax will never do that. But it's another tool in the toolbox to authorize the consideration for application for the optional sales tax to get even the smaller jobs done, or where we have been granted beach approval but not dune approval. And it's just getting it into motion so we can use it. I don't know about when we hear, if we authorize it, it's going to be done. Just authorize the availability to consider it. That's what we're doing today.
Thank you for that clarification, Commissioner. Sometimes it gets all wonky when Dylan gets legally, and I mean that nicely, but I understand what it is at this point, and I would agree with you on that.
Mr. Chair.
We're not spending any money today.
First of all, it's just a simple resolution allowing it. We have to trust, and we do, Mr. Butler and Mr. Reingold. They've done their due diligence and research, knowing that we can do this. It's simply a bridge until FEMA can reimburse us, to be quite frank with you, so I'm all for it.
Yeah, I would also agree, like I said, my first statement was, it's not my first choice for beach renourishment projects of any kind, dune, beach, or both. I would agree with that. I like Commissioner Adams' idea of case-by-case basis as to what we're going to do, and again, Commissioner Fleischer put it very succinctly of what the idea is. So yeah, and the big thing is, I trust you to keep all these gentlemen straight about what they're going to spend and where we're going to spend it, and how we can spend it. So with that, yeah, I would support this. So.
Motion to
Commissioners,
approve.
your pleasure.
You got a motion, second.
Motion by Commissioner Fleischer, second by Commissioner Lohr. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion? What? Again?
Bob McFarland. I don't know, you guys are,
You come up
you
here.
created this agenda for me, I'm thinking, because I'm looking through the first whereas and everything that's listed in there. And of course, I want to do, like I said earlier, I'm giving up a side gig, so I'm going to have a lot more time, and I'm very committed to the CSAC going forward. And it has in here for jail expansion. I plan on reducing the jail ultimately if I'm successful. And I agree with the recreational facilities, and if the beach, and again, Ms. Daniels, I love everything you do. I don't know how you do it. So, but we're talking about the sand being put in some of the things. I plan on, and again, I respect your decision not going forward, but I plan on bringing, and again, April is Child Abuse Prevention Month. I plan on bringing forward, because we're at our status right now, and I don't think there's any greater infrastructure than the children of this county. I would like to see a child abuse prevention proactive plans that may be listed in this resolution, and if I can prove to you that it's needed, I would like to be able to come add in the beach and add that, because I believe that's part of the infrastructure as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments from the public? Seeing none, Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed, nay.
Motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner Moss dissenting. All right, thank you. Item 13B, Children's Services Advisory Committee appointment. Counselor.
Thank you very much. We have a vacancy on our Children's Services Advisory Committee. It is the one of the two member-at-large positions. We've had several applications on file, and thus today, simply the county attorney's office wanted to present those applications and recommends that the board consider the applications and decide whether to appoint someone to fill the vacant member-at-large position. And with that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Mr. Chair. As I look through the applications and I look through the membership on the CSAC committee, what is missing is adequate North County representation as well as representation for the city of Fellsmere and the youth in that community. So in an effort to bolster that representation, I'd like to nominate Amber Serta.
I'll second
that. I have a motion by Commissioner Adams for Amber Serta and a second by myself. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion?
Again, once thank you.
Surprise.
Bob McParlin, I fully agree with Amber Serta, you know, because the North County is underrepresented on the boards, and she has served on the Sebastian Charter Review Committee, and she has been on the Sebastian Citizens Budget Advisory Review Committee for a long time. So I understand her commitment to serving. And I looked through, and there are two other fine representatives I see, and I actually met Dawn Carboni here, and she has she's got a master's degree in accounting, which is very important. So again, I support Amber Serta, but I want Ms. Carboni to know is that, you know, we do have a needs assessment and planning committee and a grant review and program committee where I think she would be a stellar candidate serving on those. And I don't want her to feel, you know, let down, but because I see that, and I see they wanted a need for a financial background on the Children's Services Advisory Committee, and I wholeheartedly support Ms. Carboni for that position. But I do like to see Amber Serta because we currently, Mr. Flesher has Michelle Morris as his appointee, and Ms. Adams has Kerry Bartlett, and my position is officio. That could be somebody from another county. I just so happen to reside in the North County. So that is 3 of the 13. So North County only has 3 that represent up there. So
Right.
I support the motion.
Any further discussion?
No, I just want to echo what Councilman McPartlin has said. I know he's been up here countless times today, and I appreciate this input. But I just want to say that I have reviewed them all as well. I mean, I can count to 3. I could support it as well. However, Dawn Carboni is a representative to be reckoned with. She's got a lot of experience. I'm looking at the guy we rely upon for auditing and recognizing a tremendous tool in that arena. And I think that her expertise, experience, she's working on a doctorate. And I think that her experience over 25 years would be well served. Again, count to 3. And I do agree that the suggested applicant also is well able to serve. But I wanted to point out that we're going to have to see if there's another opportunity for Ms. Carboni, because I'd hate to see that talent not be utilized for the betterment of Indian River County.
Council, is this the only current applicant? I mean, the only current vacancy we have right now?
So on CSAC, I believe the one member at large is the one vacancy that we do have.
All right, any further questions? Anybody further questions from the public?
Did everybody else make their appointments?
Yes.
I believe so. Yeah.
Everybody from their district has one. This is the only one at large, he said.
So we're complete as of today.
Yes, okay.
We're going to keep working on that.
Yeah, but like Mr. McPartland said, there may be the subcommittees there may be some availability on the subcommittees, and I don't,
Yeah, and the subcommittee is going to be very important, especially based upon what the board did last year, and I think it was talked about up here on the dais earlier today, was because the CSAC members are going to be less on the subcommittee groups, and the subcommittee groups do so much work with regards to grant review and with regards to the other committee doing the needs assessment. Trust me, those members on those subcommittees are very, very important.
Mr. Chair, I'll just say, when I reviewed the four, Ms. Carboni jumped out, and it looked to me like that would be the direction I'm going. Hopefully, staff will communicate with her that, in fact, there will be some openings in the future, no doubt. But in the interest of welcoming Ms. Serta, I agree with that.
all right. Any further discussion? We have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by myself for Amber Serta. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you very much.
All right, nothing under Commissioner matters. 15, Special District and Boards. We're under the Solid Waste Disposal District, 15B1.
Move
Approval of Solid Waste Disposal District meeting minutes of February 21st, 2023.
Motion second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Fleischer. Anybody from the public wish to comment on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. 15B2, amendment to number 2 to wastewater treatment agreement with Indian River Sustainability Center. And I see Mr. Liskey is here.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Fleischer. Anybody from the public wish to comment? Seeing none, great job. Commissioners, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right, we made it to number 16, adjournment. The next meeting is May 2nd, 2023. I thank you for your time today, and don't forget to pay your taxes, sir.
Mr. Chair, could we just check with, if Council McPartlin has anything else to add to the meeting?
I think he's done.
Special recognition, he needs special recognition. I think so.
Well, he was quite the participant today. Thank you, sir.
All right, with that, we stand adjourned.